Sorry. Insane. Got the secret agent one too. Your vents. Yeah, but those were a lot of guards, man. That was a lot of guards. You got that roll, man. That roll was really scary. Yeah, when you didn't shoot the laser guy, he could have sniped you. But I think you could have survived that maybe. See. Archive 16. Let's see.
Material from the interior. There's some kind of chemical process went in here which is very weird. So again, looking up the ceiling, bits of splat, but not what I would call smoke or carbon.
Legend, man. You just started running a few months ago? Nice, man. Dude, that's insane. How long did it take you? How many hours did you put into doing that strat with the ducking, the kneeling guy? Because with the N64 Mystic Cheese, it took him a really long ass time to get it to work.
Not found in Egypt. So weighing in at a minimum of 30 tons, where did this stone come from? How was it shaped? And how was it brought down the shaft system into this niche?
Holy shit.
Here again you can see the tool marks.
Thanks.
Similar, almost
That's
like
insane. Legend, dude. Sorry I didn't know to follow you before. That's sick, man. 100 hours, bro.
Who was one of our guides. The water that he's in is crystal clear, and he's standing on top
That's
of
real,
another
dude.
giant box that's submerged underwater. So we are presently 200 feet minimum underground in the Osiris
Awesome, man.
shaft. And there is underground water, of course, at Gyges, but this water is crystal clear. So where exactly did it come from, and was it intended that this water be in there and be part of whatever process this structure originally performed? Because they call it a symbolic tomb, which is a really cheap way of saying we don't understand
Congrats,
what
man.
this was
That's
made
psych.
for,
That's
who
psych.
made
That's
it, and
psycho.
when it was made.
That's dope.
It's clearly megalithic, and
That is
thus
psycho.
it's likely at least 12,000 years old, and was found by the dynastic Egyptians. They did not construct
Appreciate you being here and your interest.
possibly.
Yeah, I got 18. I got Bunker 1 18. I gotta go back for 17 on
Technology
Xbox.
that was involved, which we see also at other places in ancient Egypt. The clear signs of lost ancient high technology that was present long before the time of the pharaonic people. I believe the stone is called dacite. I might be wrong. That would be D-A-C-I-T-E. Interestingly, inside this niche,
I mean, I also have Damn 52 on Xbox, but
human-sized sarcophagus
not
could have once
too
been.
not too difficult to get.
That could have
to
been
be
an
honest.
actual dynastic burial, but the other two boxes and the ones
The reaction's
submerged
pretty funny.
underwater were beyond the technological capability of the dynastic Egyptians, and thus has to be much, much older.
Aw, thanks, man.
So as far as I know,
Thanks,
only
dude.
a handful of groups have been in the Osiris
Yeah, I was
shaft
playing a lot of
since its
damn on
opening
N64.
in
That's
November
why I
of
think
2017.
it came quicker.
You can rent the space if you want.
Definitely, 100%.
Minimum cost is $2,000 US, but that is what we do on each of our yearly tours, usually in March or April.
Yeah, that was, I guess, technically my
We do
first
very special
world
things
record
for
other
our
than
guests.
duel.
We get access to other places which are very, very difficult for the
On
common
Perfect Dark,
traveler or
Dual
tourist
Agent.
to get to see. But that's why we like to believe that our tours are very special. And that's why there is a definite focus, not so much on the dynastic people.
It looks
though that's
nice, man.
covered,
Dark
more
room and on Xbox
lost
is really
ancient
pretty.
high technologies, trying to unravel who did this work, when this work was done, why it
Yeah,
was
I
done.
did it
And of
widescreen
course, you
or
can learn
16
more
by
about
9
this
or whatever.
under tours on my
Because I
website
think
at
reduce lag, but
hiddenincaTours.com. So we did
I think
have
it
a
just
full
might be BS, but who
2
knows?
hours. Here's Yusuf climbing back out of the water again. And this was an amazing adventure because for many, many years I wanted to go inside this Osiris shaft, but of course it was always padlocked, and even requests with the authorities were met with deaf ears. They refused to even think about the idea of allowing anybody in there, but the new Antiquities Minister is very progressive. He understands that opening up more of these sacred ancient spaces brings more tourism, but what it also
Why?
does is it allows us, the researchers, to try to unravel the secrets of ancient places, such as here on the Giza Plateau, as well as the other sites
Why?
all the way from Tanis, which is in the Nile Delta area in the north, south to Aswan, where we find amazing things such as the unfinished 1,200-ton obelisk in the quarry at Aswan. So I hope you've enjoyed this adventure. We will definitely be going back to the Osiris
Please.
shaft in
Please.
April of
Can this please be the run?
2019
Like, please?
on our very special tour, limited to 42 participants. And so these are related books.
I
at
tried taking
hiddenintours.com
off
and
letting go of
also
C up,
Amazon.com.
but that was really just dumb decision.
Aftershock, the ancient cataclysm that erased human history.
It's really slow.
Lost ancient technology of Egypt. Lost Ancient Technology of Egypt, Volume 2, that thoroughly covers the Osiris shaft. The Enigma of Cranial Deformation, co-written with David Hatcher Childress.
What? Like, how did I not?
And Akhenaten, the Heretic Pharaoh, truly an enigmatic and fascinating ancient person. This is the famous step period of Djoser, or Zoser, and this is likely the first time that the dynastic Egyptians tried to build a large pyramid.
Why?
But what do you make of this shaft cut into the solid bedrock? It's one of many in this location at Saqqara, and it's likely a pre-dynastic construction
Why?
made by the master builders, because we also find these on the area of Giza, as in where the Great Pyramids are located. So I'm not interested in the dynastic period, though it's a splendid history of ancient Egypt. What I'm looking for are examples of lost ancient high technology and catastrophic damage. So what we're seeing here are very hard stone surfaces that appear not to have been necessarily vandalized, but more likely were victims of a massive cataclysm of some kind.
Be right back.
Now, some of these surfaces you can see, the weathering is very strange. It's like the stones were hit with a very high heat, not simple vandalism. So of course, the structures would have been utilized as quarries during the dynastic times and also well into the Roman times. But what has happened to this little pyramid? It's not simply people taking hammers and trying to break it up. It looks like it has been struck by high heat. And we'll see many other examples of this that tend to support Dr. Robert Schoch's theory that plasma was ejected from the sun and struck certain parts of the earth about 12,000 years ago. So when you look at the top layer of the soil, see it's orangey, brownish looking. That's what happens to limestone when it's hit with very high heat. And here is another example. The top surface is there. And again, how was this little pyramid, which was immaculately constructed, how was it damaged so heavily like this? Again, my theory, and when we look at these burn marks that you see on the surface of the limestone, was that this pyramid and others were hit by solar plasma 12,000 years ago. And then later, they were found by the dynastic Egyptians somewhere around 5,000 years ago. So let's go inside the pyramid here, Pyramid of Unas. Unas was a pharaoh. He was quite possibly buried in this pyramid, but he and his people did not construct it. The walls in this case appear to be granite on the left and right sides, and the lid, or ceiling, and that granite would have been brought from at least 500 miles away from the quarries at Aswan. And here again, the walls appear to be granite. If this was used for strength, that is a possibility. However, it may have been used for energetic purposes, which is something I get into in other videos that I've done about Egypt. And now we're going to go into the back recess underground here at the Unas Pyramid and have a look at this really intriguing box that some people would say is a sarcophagus, but the stone is very fine, tight-grained granite. And again, the box would have had to have been transported from Aswan, which is more than 500 miles away. And it appears that the lid was supposed to hermetically seal the box. Now, for most of their time, the dynastic people only had Bronze Age level technology, so there's no way that they were able to shape this box with such finesse. So this Unas Pyramid has been recently opened up for us to explore. We were there in March of 2018, and now we're going to climb back outside of it and explore more of the Saqqara area. So once again, the Gyozr Pyramid, or Zoser Pyramid, and this could be a construction done by the dynastic people, because you see it's relatively small stones that are stacked on top of each other. But I wonder where those staircases go. They appear to go underground somewhere. Maybe they connect with the ancient tunnel system, which is spoken of not only here, but also throughout the Giza Plateau area, which is immense. It's not just the area where you find the Great Pyramids, but it includes places like Saqqara, Abu Sir, Abu Rawash, etc. And now we look down, you see the top level is dynastic, but below that, cut into the bedrock. So again, the bedrock cutting is probably a pre-dynastic work. And here we have another look at that. See, stacked stone on top of cutting into the bedrock itself. Now, here we are at one of my favorite places at Saqqara, and this is called the Serapeum. Again, notice that the upper layer appears to be burnt or scorched by heat. And as we walk into the Serapeum, this is one of the most spectacular places by far in all of ancient Egypt because of the mysterious boxes we're going to look at. The site was discovered by the archaeologist Mariette, I believe in the 19th century, and had been relatively unknown for a long period before that. It is literally underground. The dynastic people probably found it, but the constructions you're going to see could not have been done by the dynastic people. The first thing is, if the lights weren't on, this place would be pitch black. And so how could they possibly have quarried out this huge tunnel system that goes through it? There's no appearance of any soot or anything like that on the ceiling. And so the construction of this tunnel system, which appears to have been repaired, as you can see on the left, in different periods of time, the lighting must have been artificial in some way. And though that sounds hard to believe, you will believe it when you see what these boxes look like. It appears in some ways that the Serapeum is a climate-controlled atmosphere, because every time I've been there, and it's been at least 6 times so far, it's always about 70 degrees Fahrenheit or approximately 20 degrees Celsius, which is a very pleasant temperature. It's not like something like the interior of the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid, which is very, very warm. So the coolness, of course, is because it's subterranean, but the question is, what are these immense objects that we're about to see? How were they created? What were they possibly used for? And why, when Mariette discovered them, were all of the lids, except one, pried open? Very mysterious place. So the lid of this box weighs 30 tons, and the box itself weighs 70 tons. So that's 100 tons, and you can see the highly polished surfaces with the really crappy hieroglyphics done. Conventional academics insist that the shaping of the box and the hieroglyphics are contemporary with one another, but that is completely ridiculous. It's quite obvious that the dynastic people found these boxes in situ, and in some cases decided to carve hieroglyphics in some of them. Again, the stone likely came either from the eastern desert or from Aswan. Also, these recesses you can see in the walls are larger than the length of the lid of the box. So that means that the indentations were likely made so that the tops, 30 tons apiece, could swivel open. And again, the surfaces beautifully polished. The lid fits on so tightly that it would hermetically seal the box. There's no way a Bronze Age culture could have possibly done this work. Though the hieroglyphics, of course, they very much could have done. They are very crude, and because of the granular nature of the granite with the quartz content, that's why the lines are not straight. And why are these indentation areas polished as well? It's very odd that the original builders didn't make them perfectly flat surfaces. If this was a resonant box of some kind, or high technology, or some other function, it could be that the indentations were for final tuning of the box, because the acoustics inside are absolutely astonishing, and the box loves the sound of the tone Om. So again, the hieroglyphics are so crude, whoever the artisan was, he could not even, or she, could not even make a straight line because of the granular nature and the content of very hard quartz, which is in the material itself. But the high polish of the surfaces is quite amazing. You would likely need to have something like diamond dust or powder to be able to produce a polished surface like that. And then as we turn, we're going to explore the fact that there are more than 20 of these massive boxes in situ in the Serapeum at Saqqara. Now, not only are they in the niches, but you can notice they're about 5 feet down into the niche. So the box would have to have been moved through the corridor, turned around a corner, and be gently placed downwards by about 6 feet or 2 meters into the niche itself. And again, intriguing, that the interior walls are wider so that the top of the box could swivel freely. But how are you going to move a 30-ton lid by hand in such a narrow space? So we continue walking through the tunnel labyrinth system. Here's the Serapeum. And this little hallway connects up with the second long tunnel. It does not have niches in it, but it seems to be the way that the stone boxes were transported into the other tunnel system. And what we're going to see here is very much telltale as to what was going on in ancient Egypt before the time of the dynastic people. What we're coming up to is one of the giant boxes without the lid, and the surface is relatively rough. So it was shaped likely before it was brought into the tunnel system of the Serapeum. And this is like it's locked in time. Something happened at the Serapeum, stopping all work. Once again, there's no soot or anything like that on the ceilings, and so candles or torches or whatever would not have been used in the fabrication of the tunnels or the movements of the boxes themselves. So artificial lighting of some kind would have to have been used, and this goes along with the fact that these boxes had to have been made utilizing high levels of very advanced technology, in some cases technology beyond our capacity today. So as we walk past the unfinished box that likely would have been finished once it was very close to its niche, we see in the background the lid that was to accompany the box. So it's very likely, and it's telling us, that the box would have been moved first, then the lid second. The box would have probably then been put into its niche, then the lid, 30 tons, put on top of the box. But how was the polishing done to make such a beautiful seal? And then we have this other orphaned lid here, and we're going to go back into the main tunnel to see where its companion box might be located. So again, this is the main tunnel, and here you can see the flashlights glinting off a smaller box, but very finely crafted, with some crude hieroglyphics put on later. This is the companion box for that monstrous lid that we saw just previously. You can see it wasn't finally finished, so the finishing would have to have been done in the niche itself. And Saqqara is a massive, massive site, and so there are other underground structures that we visited. Not as impressive as the Serapeum, but still, if you're going to spend the entire day at Saqqara, then it's well worth to make efficient use of your time. So in the case of climbing into this little tunnel, which again appears to be lined with granite, then you literally have to get on your hands and knees and crawl. There's a lot of dust and ground up limestone on the floor, and so you'll definitely have to wash your clothes after this little adventure. But that's what visiting ancient Egypt, especially with us, is all about. It's seeing as much as possible and focusing on the most mysterious ancient constructions that could not have been achieved by the dynastic Egyptians, telling us that standard history is very short-sighted, and that there are thousands of years of time in ancient Egypt that are not documented properly by standard academia. Now, this box appears to be made of limestone, which could have been achieved, possibly, by the dynastic people with their bronze tools. But what are the strange scorch marks that we see on the stone, just like we saw on the surface with the little pyramid of Unis? So now this is what is called the Valley Temple. That's its common name. can notice that it's limestone that is excessively weathered and eroded. The external surface has been removed over the course of time to be recycled for other structures, likely in the city of Cairo. But the amount of weathering involved is extremely interesting. And here's a section of the outer wall of granite that is still in situ. Now, geologists have told me that the amount of weathering on the limestone surfaces above is far more than one would expect from wind and rain and sand and sun over the course of, say, 2,000 years. Luckily, this section that you saw there of the outer granite core is still in place. But here you're looking at megalithic-sized stones, obviously. The granite outer facing was brought from, most likely, the Aswan Quarry, which is about 500 miles to the south, or 800 kilometers. And you're looking at serious tonnage here. And all of these stones interlock, or originally interlocked very beautifully without any mortar whatsoever involved. And again, here we are walking along, and this is what's called the Sphinx Temple in front of the Sphinx. And in fact, the Valley Temple and the Sphinx Temple were originally the same structure. And here again are some of the granite outer facing blocks that are still somewhat intact. There you see the Great Pyramid in the background. And again, you're looking at serious tonnage here in terms of the limestone core. Blocks weighing 10, 20, perhaps 40 tons. The weathering is extreme, and we believe that this structure is contemporary with the structure of the Sphinx, meaning that it is 12,000 plus years old, and this is based on what geologists, more than 200 from around the world, tell us, based upon the weathering patterns. So this is inside the so-called Valley Temple. Notice the amount of erosion on the bottom of this pillar as compared to higher up, which we will see in other video clips. You can see the bottom half, roughly, seems to be heavily weathered. That may very well have been water. And here you see the interfacing granite stones that originally were very tightly fitting together. Again, the granite all came most likely from the Aswan Quarry in Aswan itself, in the very southern part of Egypt. Again, notice the weathering on the lower section. And here, again, we're still inside the Valley Temple. You see how the blocks interlock almost perfectly. There was no mortar originally, but they've done repair work, and so they've done some filling in recent times. And this is the passageway that takes us up higher onto the Giza Plateau. Again, megalithic-sized blocks of granite. And geologists have told us that the amount of weathering here is much more excessive than would be under normal conditions over the course of, say, 2,000 years. So once we're outside, there's the second pyramid on the left, and of course the Great Sphinx. And we're going to go into some detail as regards the weathering patterns on the Sphinx. But this is a walk back around the outside of the Valley Temple. Again, the exposed limestone surfaces, some of the external granite that was covering the outside and the inside. And another glimpse inside the niche of the Valley Temples that we can see the scale of the granite blocks. There you see a repair that could have been done maybe in dynastic times. The floor is granite, and the walls are, again, these multi-ton blocks. So we go back outside, and then turn to the left to have a look at the exterior of the Valley Temple that basically interlocks with what's called the Sphinx Temple. So they were originally one homogeneous structure. Now these massive limestone blocks were taken out of what's called the Sphinx enclosure. So whoever made the Sphinx cut out these multi-ton blocks in order to shape the Sphinx enclosure and shape the Sphinx itself. Each block was taken out, of course, individually, and then locked into the one that had been taken out prior. And these vertical weathering lines are the
You think I should have a restarting computer? Nice.
precipitation.
I'll be back. Sorry, I was away. I'll be right back in a
On
second.
such a scale has not been seen in this part of Egypt, geologists tell us, for at least 12,000 years. The head, of course, has been recarved during dynastic times, but you see the chest of the Sphinx heavily eroded, and there with the paws we see a lot of reconstruction that likely began during the time of Khufu.
Why?
Now this shows the difference between the bedrock and here blocks in between the front paws of the Sphinx. And then this wooden walkway which is in between the front paws. And again, a lot of reconstruction has been done to the Sphinx over the course of possibly 4,500 years. You can see relatively modern rebuilding and then much older. And then the bedrock itself. But you see that this is one of the back paws, and it clearly has been reconstructed in relatively recent times as compared to the weathering of the Sphinx enclosure. Again, major emphasis on the vertical weathering, because that indicates precipitation. And if you didn't know, there is an entrance near the very back end of the Sphinx. There is a ladder inside, so there could be a labyrinth of shafts and tunnels under the Sphinx and the entire Giza Plateau. Once again, the vertical water weathering and the excessive and extreme erosion that we find at the Sphinx. Different layers are different hardnesses, so the softer layers were carved out much more rapidly than the harder layers. You see the undulating lines. And this shows you the extent of the Sphinx enclosure itself, that the Sphinx was carved out of the bedrock itself. And there are the blocks taken from the Sphinx enclosure to build the Sphinx and Valley temples. So once again, on the left, you see that's bedrock. On the right, those are blocks. So the story that there is an entrance to the Sphinx in the front is likely true, because if you look at the rectangular system of boards there, that section can actually be taken out. And so it's believed that the Egyptologists have discovered the underground tunnel and shaft systems that exist under the Sphinx itself, extending likely all the way
Sorry
at least to the Great
away,
Pyramid,
my friends.
not beyond. On the left you saw that bit of repair and this strange channel, which is really quite rough, but I never noticed this on previous trips. There's a channel that basically goes all the way around the Sphinx. Whether it was done during dynastic times or not is unknown. It's not very sophisticated. But just to emphasize one more time, the vertical weathering was precipitation. And it has not rained much around the Giza Plateau. Climatologists also tell us for at least 10, if not 12,000 plus years, making the Sphinx at least twice as old as the dynastic Egyptians. And there again is the entrance to a shaft with a metal ladder inside. Of course, it's illegal to go in there, but I filmed it, so you can see. And more or less finally, once again, the extreme weathering marks on the limestone of the bedrock of the Sphinx enclosure, all of the repair work that's been done over the Sphinx over the course of up to 4,500 years. Some Egyptologists insist that Khufu was the one who constructed the Sphinx, but it's likely he and Khafre were the ones who did repairs. And this shows you again the transition between the bedrock and then these blocks of limestone and the rectangular section which underneath is believed to be the entrance to the shaft and tunnel systems. Now this strange location is called Tanis, and it's in the Nile Delta in northern Egypt. It takes 3.5 hours to drive from Cairo, and for the last 2 hours we drive through lush vegetation and agricultural farmland. So the question is, why is Tanis seemingly devoid of life, and why is every sculpture and obelisk and pillar, etc., smashed to pieces? This is way beyond the damage of any marauding army or vandalism. This is cataclysmic destruction, and we're going to see lots of evidence of heat scorching on the surfaces of a lot of the stone. Now, most of the stone, which is located at Tanis, such as this, is granite, and it's likely that the granite came from the great quarry at Aswan, and Aswan is 1,000 kilometers to the south. So how was all of this transported? These are small pieces. Again, notice the very strange erosion of the surfaces. And the only piece that seems to have been intact is this quartzite box. The hieroglyphics were likely done by the dynastic Egyptians, but it's clear that the dynastic Egyptians found the site of Tanis in complete destruction, and so they decided to build there and recycle with what they found. Now again, is this erosion natural or normal, or could it be the result of intense blasts of heat? This gives you the visual. Again, you can see that Tanis is more or less devoid of life, except for the odd thorny bush, like the one you can see on the right here. And when you walk on the surface, it's not like you're walking in sand or on dirt, but more like flour, as if all of the nutrients was burnt out of the soil itself. And this gives you an idea of the sheer volume of stone found at Tanis. Again, likely from the Aswan granite quarry, 1,000 kilometers to the south. And as you can see, every single stone shows incredible levels of damage. Archaeologists tried to put this sculpture together, but it does look like some of the extensions of it, like the arms, were literally blown off. This fits in well with the theory of Dr. Robert Schoch regarding solar plasma striking the Earth 12,000 years ago. And this is another example. You can see that the right-hand side of that statue has been hit with at least 2,000 degrees Celsius of heat. Now, all of this stone was found by archaeologists in the 19th century underground. They had to dig down 10 to 20 feet in order to find Tanis. And here you can see that this wall section, in fact, was probably rebuilt by the dynastic Egyptians. possibly 2 or 3 or 4,000 years ago. And look at that slab of granite on the left where Irene is standing, massive. So this area may have been exposed during dynastic times, and they built that wall section. There are also an incredible number of obelisks and sections of obelisks located in Tanis, more than at any other location by far in Egypt. This would not have been a place where obelisks were manufactured because, again, the quarry is 1,000 kilometers away. So they would have been made at Aswan and then transported to different locations around Egypt. But also what we know is that the obelisks themselves are megalithic, and they were constructed in pre-dynastic times by a civilization that clearly had lost ancient high technology, because the Bronze Age dynastic people could not shape granite surfaces like this. They could etch in hieroglyphics, but they couldn't shape sculptures like this. Now here again, the bottom of the statue, we're seeing intense heat. This has been corroborated by geologists that we've had on location. And again, it looks like sections of that statue were blown off, not struck off. Here's another statue. You see the left-hand side has been melted. These sculptors would have made sure that the stone was very consistent and homogeneous before they started the sculpture, so it's not a flaw in the stone. It's a heat effect that happened to the stone in the very distant past. Again, a massive block of stone, at least 20 tons. Surface erosion is excessive, and just everything is broken on a massive scale. Vandals with hammers could not do this kind of damage. This had to have been done by some sort of natural external force that literally blew Tanis to pieces. And we also see evidence of this at other locations, such as Karnak and the Ramesseum and other locations to the south. But it's here. Look, another obelisk section on the left. And the fineness and depth of this carving, again, appears to be machined, not done by hand. So we're looking at the possibility that even hieroglyphics are older than the dynastic Egyptians. When you look into the background, that is the original level that archaeologists found in this area. So they had to dig down in order to expose all of this stone. Again, look at the blackness on that stone on the right. That appears to be heat. So this is an overview of Tanis, or at least this is what we were allowed to see. It's in the middle of an army/police base, and we were only allowed to see a certain section of it. If I started to wander off and look at other areas, I was immediately told to come back. And so why they're being so secretive here is a very good question. Again, devastating damage. The stone is strewn all over the place. This is not a civilization moving in and taking over and deciding to destroy ancient structures. There's another obelisk you see in the background with Yusuf Awiyan, another obelisk section, and then another obelisk section. There are between 10 and 20, if not more, obelisks that were found in the area, all broken. And again, this surface appears to be machined, not done with chisels. So that is lost ancient high technology evidence. Another section of an obelisk with very deep carving into the granite surface. And of course, the stone has been lined up during the excavation times by the archaeologists. Here you see more sections of obelisks. And the new prevailing theory is that the obelisks were originally made not as standing monuments for the glorification of the ancient Egyptian rulers, but in fact they were part of an energetic system. They were the receivers of energy emitted from the power plants or energy structures that we call the pyramids, located around the Giza Plateau area. There's a perfect circular hole that could have been machined. And then we get to the tomb area. And if you look carefully, you can see that all of this stone was restacked during dynastic times. The giant blocks of granite were likely there originally, and the dynastic people simply took stone from the area, especially this limestone on the left, and piled it up to create a tomb. Inside this one, we find a granite box. This likely was a sarcophagus. The roughness of the surface shows that it was probably done during dynastic times because it's not that well done as compared to the finer craftsmanship of the older megalithic work. And then when we look up, we'll see that this top block has hieroglyphics on it. So clearly that was recycled from an older structure. The dynastic Egyptians did not move any material in terms of stone into the area. They simply recycled what they found. And their technical prowess was not much compared to that of the earlier lost ancient high technology civilization. Here again, we see a much larger box, which they would call a sarcophagus, with the top snapped off as if it was hit with an enormous force. And one last wander through the area of Tanis we were allowed to see, which was quite extensive. And again, you can tell this area was probably exposed and open during dynastic times, and the stone was reconstructed, or the wall was reconstructed by the dynastic people. See the very poor work on the left-hand side. That's an addition during dynastic times. And the simple fact that this whole area here is devoid of life except for a handful of prickly bushes gives us a strong indication that solar plasma struck this area about 12,000 years ago. This is corroborated by Dr. Robert Schoch, who's a geologist, and also accounted in my book, Aftershock. Here again, we see more melted surface on this piece of quartzite. It is like a giant came in and just knocked everything to pieces, but it wasn't a giant, it was a giant force that came from outside of the Earth, plasma ejection from the sun, most likely striking at sunrise around 12,000 years ago. It could have been a series of events, not just one simple one-day event, but it could have taken place over the course of up to 300 years, according to Dr. Robert Schoch, that would have vaporized anything and anyone that was in this area. The soil might have been blown up into the sky and then came down and covered the whole site. Because here I am on the original surface level. This is the surface that the archaeologists found, and in order to see the artifacts, you have to climb down, again, between 10 and 20 feet. And these mysterious men in black were with us. There were 4 or 5 of them. Very nice suits, sunglasses, automatic weapon hiding underneath his jacket. They were keeping a very fine eye on our activity, but thankfully we were able to film. So these are related books of mine at Amazon.com. Lost Ancient Technology of Egypt, Volume 1, which does not include Tanis. Lost Ancient Technology of Egypt, Volume 2 does include a thorough chapter on the Tanis location. Aftershock, the ancient cataclysm that erased human history. And Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh, the only person who lived during dynastic times that fascinates me.
Hello all and welcome back to Uncharted X. This is Ben and I have another video swapcast for you today with a detailed look at a couple of just the most megalithic sites that you can find in Egypt. This was a very interesting couple of hours that we spent. The Snake brothers, Colin Ross and I, sat down with Hugh Newman from Megalithomania and we got into a detailed look at the Valley Temple at Giza as well as the Assyrian at Abydos. Both of these sites have some similarities in kind of their megalithic construction and the way their pillars were formed, the fact that they are essentially subterranean, they had multiple levels, but they also have some unique features and differences too. And in this video we take a good long look around both of these sites and discuss them in detail, as both Hugh and I have been to these sites a number of times. I'm sure plenty of you know who Hugh Newman is. I did do a podcast with him recently on my channel. He runs the excellent Megalithomania UK YouTube channel as well as the megalithomania.co.uk website. Just a quick note on these videos. I know I've been producing quite a lot of swapcasts and podcasts recently. They've been just tremendous fun to do and I very much appreciate everybody's time in sitting down and talking with you. I also think it's a good way to share a very detailed look at some of these sites, all of the little nooks and crannies and the things that go into kind of filming there for a few hours. But at the same time, I do want to get back to my more regular produced mini documentary style of videos. So that's my intention. The next video you will see on this channel will be, I guess, another chapter in my advanced technology series, taking a close look at what's been discovered under the ground at Saqqara and beneath the Step Pyramid. And going forward, I hope to have a bit more of a balance between the two. I do have a couple of hours of interviews that I did in the last couple of weeks with Randall Carlson, that I will release that one after I get my next mini documentary video out. In any case, I very much hope you enjoy this podcast and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.
Alright, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Swapcast with Ben from Uncharted X. And this time we are joined by Hugh Newman of Megalithomania. He's also done lots of other projects. I've been following his work for years, so it's great to have you on. Hugh, thanks so much for joining us, man. This is great.
No, it's fantastic. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, so I think Ben's got footage planned for, what are we looking at, Ben?
We've got a couple of good ones today. I did also want to say hi to Hugh and that we did a chat on both of on my channel. I think it's on your channel as well. We did a podcast, so I have only just sort of recently met you and very much enjoyed chatting with him. And yeah, well today, I thought it'd be a great one. I know you've been to these places a bunch of times and you have videos on these as well on your channel. But I figured we'd take a look at the Valley Temple at Giza and then also the Assyrian. Both kind of similar but different in a lot of ways, but yeah, both some just interesting, massive constructions.
Alright, excellent. And yeah, I should have mentioned that. I just listened to the podcast you guys did together.
Oh yeah.
Go check that out.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I haven't listened to that one yet.
What? Get out of here.
Sorry, man.
You're fired.
I didn't
Good
do my
job.
homework this week.
I think I'm actually recording my microphone too, so
Alright.
try not to screw up again.
Pro move.
Yeah.
Yeah, pro move. Record yourself.
So what are we looking at? We're starting here. This is outside the Valley Temple.
It
All
is.
those ancient chairs.
Yeah, let me roll the video. In fact, I love this shot too. This is probably one of my favourite shots. I use this one all the time. But it's the panning walk in front of where the Valley Temple sits, which obviously you can probably tell from the background, fairly well-known spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, this sits right at the end. So this is the structure that's connected to the causeway that runs to the second pyramid. You can see there on the left of the screen. This is the temple that kind of sits at the bottom. Called the Valley Temple because it sort of slopes down, and often structures have these temples in a valley in front of them. Yeah, real interesting location. Obviously, I'm sure many people know a lot about this, but it's we'll get in and take a close look at all the different aspects of it, or at least many of them. But as you can tell, kind of the interior core of it's made up of these just gigantic blocks of limestone, and they look very heavily weathered. And we'll take a closer look at them and talk more about them as we go. Then the other thing to note is that it is all cased in granite. So all that limestone is encased in granite. The interior structure is cased in granite, and at a high level, the other part to mention here is that it's the remnants of what was here. There was quite a bit more to it.
So I have a couple of structural questions. Did they flatten the bedrock there?
this area. I mean, one of the things with this, as we go to the front of the Bamboo Temple, or the front of the Sphinx Temple, we actually have that whole area, which you can just see now, was water. There's actually sort of megalithic bridges going over. And so water came up very close to this particular spot. And the interesting thing is about that is that the causeway coming down from the second pyramid, which comes down to the whole Sphinx and down the temple, that appears to be, I believe that's older. Quite a few people will agree with you on that. And maybe even older, maybe the origins of the survey of the whole Giza plateau, in fact. Because if you look at the causeway from the Great Pyramid, it goes much further, almost into the local village of Nazareth. And that would have then drew the water much further away. So that suggests that causeway and any temples were there then were built later. So because of the water coming in much closer to the Bamboo Temple does suggest a possible extreme or older, site, or older part of the site. And then when you look at some of these blocks here, we're looking kind of at the part of the Sphinx Temple here. They are gigantic, the ones on the outside of the Bamboo Temple, these limestone blocks, and also the other temple up near the second pyramid. The stones are just ridiculous. I mean, seriously megalithic. We're talking 100-ton, 200-ton estimates in some cases, maybe more. And so, number one, why were they using such big stones? Number two, how do they move them? How do they boil and move them? How do you lift them up that high? I mean, it's actually remarkable. Then it's almost like, from what I've seen there, the granite is almost like being shaped to fit around these ruined limestone blocks. Possibly on the outside and inside, like in honour of this earlier temple. So the granite may be later. There's debate about this. We talk about this referring to the temple, so for example. But you can see these pieces here, for instance. We're looking at this beautiful kind of curved piece of granite at the bottom against these huge limestone blocks. And these curved granite pieces, maybe you know this, but they thought to be on top, going across the top of the temple outside. Is that so it has a granite. Would have had a granite outer and inner of the Bamboo Temple. And the older limestone mega blocks would have been there earlier and kind of built around it. So I find that fascinating.
Yeah, there's a bunch of points to make about that. You're right. I think the granite on the outside, just the location originally. In fact, one of the things that's really interesting about this, because we will come. I know about footage that's later, but I just wanted to mention while we're out the front here that, and this is something that John Anthony West reported at one point, was that, and this goes to the landscaping and the foundation question, but they did drill down in front of this. So for one, I think they did find, there is some constructed stone here. They did find a boat, a remnants of a boat that they reburied. But the other thing that's interesting, I think they drilled down around 100 feet down here. And there's still at one point, I don't know if I've got it in my footage, but I've got photos of it. There's still like the hole where they did a core drill at the front here. And went down something like 100 feet and they found granite. Which is obviously this is a limestone outcrop. So what is granite doing down there? Which is kind of interesting. Maybe there's so it lends to the idea that there's possibly structures and underneath. As there are, and easily 100 feet underneath, of course, with the Sara shaft and obviously the Sphinx is there and all of that sits. I think there's quite a bit that could be found if we were looking underneath the causeway, underneath this whole area.
One of the things on the question I've been researching is I'm a big fan of Robert Temple.
Yep.
He's written a book called The Sphinx Mystery and also Egyptian Dawn. And he's spoken at a conference, I've had lots of conversations with him many times. And he's been on top of the Bamboo Temple, he's climbed on top. He's also been underneath parts of it as well, places no one else has been. And he's found what he thinks are like areas where ropes would go down deep into the ground. What they were used for was actually this kind of few different spots.
That's
evidence of
conduit thing.
and there's evidence of like scraping of the rope on the granite and the limestone, suggesting they were doing something deep in the ground, perhaps building suggesting possible other chambers that were to be made. So there's little anomalies like that heat picked up on, and then when you go on top of it and actually look on top, you actually see keystone cuts as well. You see traditional Egyptian Peruvian to many other places. these granite pieces for a bit here, pretty intense. They're
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
What's that? Polished, aren't they?
You have those granite boxes. I mean, they're in the ground at the Osiris shaft, so we know they were putting boxes in them as well, and some of them are fairly large. And actually, you mentioned earlier here too that there's a temple that sits up at the actual pyramid complex, up at the foot of kind of the second pyramid, that is as big as this site. And I think we did I've got a video where we sort of pasted off and did a rough calculation of uses, and yeah, you're talking like 100, 120 ton blocks of limestone. The same sort of massive stuff up near the pyramid. In fact, at the end of this too, I've got a couple other sites that look just like this, and with less granite. And I think these weren't the only locations that the ancients were doing work like this. And so this is we cut away to kind of the left side of the outside of the Valley Temple here, so you can see what's left of some of these. I don't know what to call them, like these curved balustrade in those blocks. And like I said, I think these were up the top. But this is some incredible work. Just the precise nature of the curvature.
And then there's like incredibly heavily weathered limestone pieces lying around too.
Right.
The limestone blocks in the wall are very heavily weathered. There's pieces on the ground there that unless somebody busted things can look like that.
Yeah. Well, it's
Been out in the weather for forever.
yeah, it's really interesting. There's even up at the structure next to the pyramid. It's even almost more weathered. Like there's some tremendous erosion that's happening to the limestone. And the interesting thing about it, that you mentioned as well, is that it seems like Robert, I think Boval as well as Robert Schock have come to the conclusion that this granite was shaped to fit the weathered limestone. And in fact, we'll see it as we go around the corner. I've actually got a shot of where he looked at it and figured this out. So the idea is that the back of these granite blocks, and as you said, it cased all of these stones. So we had an outer and an inner layer of granite on both sides of this limestone. But there's some evidence suggests that the back side of these granite blocks were actually shaped to fit the eroded limestone blocks, which is
Yeah,
a
I
mind
don't want to
bending.
interrupt you, Ben, but can you back it up to where you were looking up at the wall, the limestone wall there a second?
Yeah.
And again, 1 second ago. Yeah, yeah. That's it.
Backside.
Yeah, I need to watch that. There we go. Move forward.
I know you guys are doing it with a little bit of lag.
Yeah, right there.
Just cut out spaces.
Yeah, what is that? Yeah, look at that.
Yeah,
It
I'm
goes,
not sure.
it goes across 2 blocks.
It's shaped
Isn't that a
almost.
seam right there, or maybe it's not a seam? Maybe it's just part of the limestone.
Not sure. Yeah.
But one of the things I've noticed with these blocks, this particular temple, is you could get a bow back as well in the main temple. Even though it's limestone, which is got severe weather, can't fit like a credit card or a paper between the seams,
Yeah.
even in the limestone, not just in the granite, in the limestone. So, and one of the other things, you can start to see it here when you see more footage, that there's a polygonal aspect to this as well. Even the mega limestone blocks, clearly we see that with the granite when you go inside the temple, but you get that with the huge blocks as well, and they're kind of put together. It's really hard to, you've got to really look carefully to capture the right lights, and you actually see the seams and the way they're shaped and curve in the corners as well. And so there's a lot of detail which you don't, unless you really know really carefully temple, you don't see it. And obviously when it was new, however long ago that was, it would have almost been like like the original case on the body pyramid. It would have been like clear, really almost shiny, in some respect.
And that's a good point too, because a lot of the finish in here is quite rough on the outside. People think it was kind of deliberately done that way, but it's almost like that outer casing layer of the very fine polished stone has fallen off. It's been damaged, or there's an effect on the stone, which is an interesting theory if you consider maybe there's a reason that this structure was cased. We saw some of the stuff at Karnak where there was an effect just see some little pieces of it here and there on the curve blocks. You can see them. This is the first time Jimmy's seen it. It's astounding. You know, some of these
I'm
blocks.
astounded.
I mean, yeah, like 40 tons, 50 tons, probably some of these big blocks. Tremendous.
Here's that corner, and this is the bit that gets kind of crazy. I mean, just to be able to do that, create that. You know, even if you're doing that with like Lego-sized blocks, that would be quite hard to, you know, kind of. This is kind of crazy. And obviously, we have the comparisons with the setting, this kind of stuff. But here they're kind of mostly kind of flat rather than sort of puffy. But yeah, I mean, just the detail of this. And, we're not being
Sorry, everyone.
how we are as well.
Sorry, I know I was gone forever. I'm back.
Still like bewildered, still trying to
I'm sorry.
tools really to create this kind of accuracy and precision. And I think you'll see here, this is the first part, maybe you can't really tell, but there's sort of mirroring going on. So
Yeah.
one wall, get almost a mirror version of the other.
Yeah.
And it's not exactly the same, but they have artistic
Legend, psycho
but it's
legend.
generally doing that. And this is something you find throughout this particular temple, especially when you get into the interior.
And what are the little alcoves? Like I saw a little, like a little set in bold on the, I guess, on the left wall when you're walking in.
There's a few of those about actually. I mean, when we get inside, the larger alcoves were where supposedly the statues, the diorite statues, halfway down. The large one was found in the pit, but no one really knows. I mean, were they acoustic? Were they kind of tuning the temple? Or was it actually, a ceremonial ritual thing? Maybe something there. It's really unclear. I mean, the mystery of Egypt, although we're told so much by the Egyptologists of what really was going on and when it was happening, a lot of it is guesswork, and we all know that. So again, our speculations could be as valid as any academics,
Indeed.
Egyptologist.
Yeah, it's a giant story that we're all putting together based on the same amount of evidence. I'll just throw this in here while we're going to pause it, just to show you that it's an example of the finished surface here, the flat worked surface, and how it's different, and this has all been flaked off or fallen off or somehow either it's damaged or whatever, but I suspect this is what all of the walls were like, but today you just get that rough finish, but most, I think originally they were flat and smooth, and you can kind of see how it's the difference. But yeah, you're right, Hugh. There's people. This tends to be put in textbooks and taught in school as if it's fact these days, and it's very much not the case. We're all, particularly these early parts of history. We have a limited set of information that we're working with, and I think, as you say, the other interpretations I think are as just as valid as the mainstream.
It seems like an awful lot of work to go in and take off all that polish. So if this is naturally just eroded away off that granite, how long would that process take?
I don't. Yeah, it shouldn't. I mean,
Seems
I
like
don't know.
These ones here are giant, aren't they? These are
Yeah.
absolutely huge. These sloping blocks on the front here.
Massive.
It's just, I just find it so. And then we start to see the alabaster floor in a moment as well.
Yeah,
which is,
we'll get in.
another mystery.
I think I wanted on this trip. This was the footage. This is footage from last year, end of last year, and I was like, we're not going in yet. I wanted to take a look on the right-hand side here and a close look. So in this area in front with these floor tiles, I believe is where they drilled. And keep your eye open for like a tube sticking out of the ground, because that's where they did a drill. I feel like I've got it somewhere, but it extends further down here, and I think it turns into, I don't know, is this the Sphinx Temple here, or is the Sphinx Temple that small structure that's next to like the left fork
Yo, Moonraker, what's up, man?
of the Sphinx, or does this?
Yo, I
does
saw
this
your
structure kind of flow
Amaranth
into the
comment
Sphinx Temple?
last
This
night.
is
It was
the
funny.
Sphinx Temple
I
and the
woke
Valley
up late
Temple are kind
and
of
I saw it. It
directly
was
next
funny.
to each other. They're like adjoining.
Right.
But it's thought that the Sphinx Temple is, number one, it's completely encased.
Yeah.
It's mainly, obviously, as you know, it's mainly limestone, and it's been cut out. I mean, basically, It's been almost like, but it has no entrance. It had no original entrance to it, which is odd. Especially, it certainly didn't have an entrance coming in from the area of the Sphinx. So that's strange. So people are questioning what that really means. Also, inside it, you have these huge pillars, almost like megaliths, standing upright, and I think in pairs in some cases. There is granite in there as well. There are elements of granite. I mean, I've never been able to go in there. I've tried a few times, but I've never actually got in. But Robert Temple has, and following his work, he's found all these anomalies with both these temples, really. And the fact that he thinks, he thinks they could be like separate temples as well, possibly built at different times, even though the limestone is quite similar. This whole area you're looking at here, this is the whole area that would have probably had some water in it as well. It would have come right up to here. There would have been canals coming in from the Nile, which would have been fairly close when this was supposedly built, like a few thousand BC. But yeah, this would have been mostly probably covered in water.
Yeah, I'm just zooming in because I believe this here might be where they drilled down and they found granite. This little, this is the little prong sticking up. But yeah, as you say, this was probably full of water. It would have led down to the original, I guess, Nile. Let me just make that go back to the correct size.
And if they were, it's interesting because if they had drilled there and they found granite, which could be evidence of boxes or chambers or something in a complex below ground, and yet they had filled that area with water by digging a canal. It seems like those underground chambers would also have been filled. I don't know.
Possibly, yeah.
Because if it's limestone, the water's going to, unless they sealed it somehow, the water's going to seep through.
Yeah. Yeah, or like a granite structure. You're right, that it would, if there was a water table. I mean, we have the water table issues there today. You go down to 100 feet, and that's the Osiris shaft is at the bottom is full of water. And they have that problem with the Sphinx too, right? They have to pump allegedly that's what they were doing. They were drilling. one of the many projects where they've been drilling under the Sphinx that don't really get talked about or acknowledged. So yeah, we
pump water.
Just pump water. Yeah, I mean they've been digging under there since the 70s. I mean, you got footage of Lena and Hawass in the 70s going there. Let's we'll move forward. There's lots of these little caves and entrances into the limestone and these blocks that are just fascinating. There's areas you wish you could get into and explore, but rarely ever are allowed. But you find these all over the place at Giza. They tend to drift off into the bedrock somewhere, and you never quite know where they go. In fact, you have the same thing happening here, as we'll see in the temple itself. As we go up towards the Sphinx, there's a couple of locked doors that are very interesting, and I've never seen the other side of.
So before we move past the tiles on the ground there, what were those, like 10 feet on a side in some cases?
Oh yeah, they're huge. Much like up on much like I think you've definitely got some tiles going on here. Although there's lots of sand over it.
How thick were they? I mean, those are huge pieces.
Well, yeah. If you look at the ones up at the plateau at the pyramids, particularly the second pyramid. In fact, you mentioned earlier, like the second pyramid. The more I think about it, the more I think that there's a good chance that the so-called Khafra pyramid, the second pyramid, may be the oldest. Because it's in the center, it's connected to the Sphinx in these areas where we have a lot of pretty hard evidence that these structures are older. But it's also the most megalithic, the biggest blocks in the foundation. I think we did the episode looking at it. And if you look at the floor tiles up there, some of those are probably a meter, maybe a little more thick. And they're also three-dimensionally interlocking with the bedrock beneath them. So they interlock with each other. Everything you look at here is no mortar. Like it's all, like as you said, you can't fit a credit card in between them. Incredible precision in the work, but the other thing is the same thing applies to the bedrock and the tiles in the bedrock, the foundation layer. I think it's one of the most remarkable parts of Giza, and people just walk right over it looking at the pyramids or these other structures, but some of the engineering true wonder is kind of under your feet.
Yeah, and so it's this is interesting to me because I'm just thinking construction-wise. So if you've already you've moved the sand away and you've cut down to the bedrock, you've got a foundation. So why would you bring in gigantic tiles of some other material unless there's a reason for that? You see what I'm saying? Like if you've already cut down to the limestone bedrock and you've flattened it, why would you need tiles of alabaster?
Or limestone or whatever they are. Yeah, it seemed to be
Yeah.
super important to lock these structures in. You know, there was this what seemed to be a functional requirement to interlock this stuff so firmly that, you know, and why, you know, if it's not, if these structures, so it leads you down the path thinking, were they resonating, were they activated somehow? It was very important that they were solidly locked and to the earth. Like that, so it's, you know,
Right.
you've hollowed out this, you've flattened this, you know, this area of bedrock. Although in cases in the pyramids themselves too, they're not just the second pyramid, but also the main pyramid. It's not flat. Like there's parts of it are actually made from bedrock. So it's, you've got tiles going into the ground, but you've also got the ground coming up, and it's all locked together. Even on the Great Pyramid, there's a few blocks here and there of its first course that are actually formed from the bedrock. They're like straight up out of the bedrock. Yeah. So it's a mystery, but I don't know. It seemed real important to lock these things into the ground. So here we go. We've kind of walked into the structure
Yo,
now.
Christian,
inside, and
Yeah,
we're
this
looking
is
roast
this is
beef
kind of
sandwich with
where it
spinach.
gets interesting, isn't it? This,
Isn't it?
we
It's
see it
really
in
good. I
corn
stuffed it
again
with
and
spinach.
joy and stuff.
Man.
That corn, it's crazy.
It literally improved
just the
these
thing,
really
why-
like
why-
not low
why do
quality
them? Obviously
sandwiches,
they want to
but
lock it
man,
in place.
adding
There's a
spinach made
purpose
it
for
so
like
good.
making it extremely
Feel like
like
Popeye.
earthquake proof, things like this. But this is sort of beyond that, really. This goes to a different level of complication.
Funny, man. That's funny.
I have no idea what Muhammad found there, but
What is that?
I think it might be a mummified ritual object or something. I don't know. I don't know, man. It's
Christian
always
man.
puzzled me. Same footage. This is from
You're
a few
saying
years
that was
ago.
a statue
Christian man.
built up there? Is that what the idea? That's the mainstream idea.
Well, I think this one down here, what we're looking at now, the pit, is.
If you find yourself
where they
in
found
Ottawa,
the
Christian,
larger,
I would be down to have a beer with you. But like, I don't under like, I just
Yeah,
don't.
the one that's the one on display.
I don't know if I can trust what you're. What you've been saying, man. I don't know if you're in Oklahoma. Like, really? I mean, I do. I believe you, but just some of the stuff you've been saying just doesn't make any sense. So nothing personal. It's just I just don't know what to say. And I mean, don't make plans just to come here just specifically because I said this. Also, that's kind of another important thing too, because
this
it's
wasn't
like,
built by Ken Frank, which is one
can't
of the
just-
theories, actually earlier structure
Anyways.
potentially. Still, they had that high technology going back to all the different eras of Egypt. It wasn't just super ancient. Right up in even to Ptolemaic times, they somehow passed this from generation to generation and were able to do this. That's why it's so hard, I think, to date this kind of stuff. Although, again, Robert Temple has done some interesting dating. He's actually done some thermoluminescence dating, and he's got did it with some granite on the third pyramid and also near the Valley Temple. He was getting data that was at least 500 to 700 years older than this, which I believe is around 2600 BC. So it's going into 3000 BC and beyond. But anyway, look, this is the main part of the temple. This is absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah, it is. There's and the floor is alabaster. We mentioned that. It's the white calcite or.
Yeah, then we have this. We have these are odd. I mean, you get these darker blocks here.
I think that's
is that an
diorite or
artistic?
basalt.
Is that like an artistic thing? Is that something they chose?
I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. I said my shit. I can't do this fucking bullshit anymore.
Yeah, it's that real famous stone. I think it's either diorite or basalt, but it seems out of place with all of the red granite. So you have kind of the white floor, the red granite. Of most of the stone, you have these main pillars, and then you have a couple of either diorite or basalt stones. Either way, you're talking something that's on par, if not harder, than granite itself. You mentioned Khafre Throne too. Even that statue, which is probably one of the finest works. People have been marveling about that statue. I mean, back when ever since they discovered it, you had stonemasons going, scratching their head, looking at it, going, no idea how to work this material like this. And if you look at, again, take a close look at that museum, look at the glyphs on it. The glyphs are clearly handmade and chiseled, as opposed to the statue itself. So, I think there's a strong chance the glyphs came later.
Are we seeing the water level here with the roughness of the lower parts of the pillars and then it getting smooth up higher?
you do get water. Yeah, there was definitely water in here. Yeah, you can, when you're in there, it's about what 3-4 feet high, something like that, and it's the whole place. You can tell it had water in it, and it was controlled. It was moved through, and it said that, you know, one of the theories is that there were ceremonies in there, going in through the Sphinx, through out the other side of the temple, and all this kind of stuff, all these different things that ancient Egyptians used to get up to, and the alabaster floor, alabaster was quite soft. You know, it's not a hard stone or anything. And one suggestion, there's lots of different ideas, and that was actually added later. That was actually a later reconstruction, but it's not clear. It's not clear if that's correct or not.
There are some alabaster blocks in the construction here. When you look in the side doors, which we'll get up to, there's actually some of the wall is made of big alabaster blocks as well.
Never lied to me. Thanks, man. That's good, dude.
But this construction style looks a lot like the Osirian.
Yep.
You know, I mean,
which has water in it, right?
I apologize if you're not.
And remember also,
but I
there's
mean,
probably a second level
if you can provide
to
some,
this as well, and a roof.
Some
So
fucking proof or
yeah,
some
it's
shit.
like it's almost as though they had the same function. I mean, it's got the pillars, the same. It's very similar in more ways than just like the layout.
I don't know, man. Like, I'm just losing my fucking mind, man.
And
like,
I don't think these are the only two places either, because I've got a couple of pictures of a site that if you kind of, after we look at this, we'll look at that, and I can see if you can guess which site it is. But it's it's. I think that then this type of thing, if it was functional, like something to do with water, perhaps this may have been replicated in a few places. Certainly, there's a connection with this and the Assyrian. I mean, they feel very similar.
So you're walking up the passage now.
That's nice of you, man. Thanks for saying that. That's very kind of you, buddy.
It's worth noting
I'm honored.
that these walls are
I'm honored you
often
hold me in
very
such
close
high
to
esteem.
Yeah.
I really am.
with these side chambers as well. And also, if you look at some of the angle on some of the stones as they go up.
What's up, Scotty?
They
Definitely not
refer
on.
back to the golden section, kind of geometric principle, and they kind of fit back in. And there's a lot of that going on here.
But I mean,
constantly.
like,
you just don't see it unless you kind of train with that kind of thing. But I followed
What's up, Scott? How you doing, man? Thanks for being here, dude.
Geometric aspects out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's one of the chambers on his right hand side.
Yeah, and all alabaster. So these blocks in here, it's all alabaster. There's a granite floor, in fact, and you see it more clearly on the other side, but these are white alabaster blocks that go around the corner. And as far as Yusuf, I've asked him a couple times actually. He's never been in here, and he's never seen these doors open. And every time I go here, I stick my camera in and I have a good look, but they go in and around the corner, and I don't know where. But you have these beautiful so you can see the contrast with the granite and the roof. But yeah, this is all alabaster blocks, and you see the same thing on the other side. I think the bottom layer might.
Holy shit, everyone's still here. Thanks, Olivia Boost. On my way right now to JK. Oh.
Yeah, that makes me suspicious.
All good, man. Just been out
Never opened.
with
Yeah.
work today, testing
Yeah, I mean,
some new
Yusuf's been there his
cars.
whole life, and he said he's never been in.
Oh,
this
insane.
one spot. He's not ever
Yeah.
oh, that's where
sounds
they put
amazing.
the stools.
been in. that's the nightly cleanup crew. You just got to find the janitor, man. You guys got
You mentioned the roof as well, Ben. That's one thing that I've always wanted to get on the roof of that place. But
Yes.
Robert Temple, again, I keep mentioning, he's been up there and he's got some really good shots in his book and on his website. Looking at that. Oh yeah, and this is one of the door jambs, right? And where they would have had would they have had like a granite door, or would that have been just a wooden door? Who knows? But yeah, but from up on top, it does seem what he thinks there were all these long pillars going over the roof, and there were many of them would be closely put together. You couldn't fit a credit card between them, but then there'd be gaps, and then there'd be another section of these. So he believes there was certain light coming in, and that may represent maybe an astronomical. They may have been using it as a solar temple to observe shadow effects as they move through the sky around the year. So it would illuminate certain things within the temple.
Good.
Clues,
I had to play it out to know if I would pass away or not, because that was terrible.
Shadow, same with
That was really bad, and it was really slow too.
Technically, it has 8 sides, and around the equinox, one of the sides,
on the balcony.
see one side, one of the faces, half of it's shadow, half of
That's
it's
funny.
light, just for a few seconds.
You guys are just so funny.
The same thing, Chichen Itza.
You guys just make me laugh so much.
Snake.
And girls, thanks for being here, everyone. I really
So I
do
think there's
appreciate it.
something to do with that, because I find like any of these massive polygonal sites like Sacsayhuaman, all these nubs, protrusions and other things. It may have had some astronomical or solar shadow function where they were recording very important times of year. It could have been for agriculture, it could have been for something much more esoteric, it could have been much more cosmic. And even, like, you know, they were so obsessed by geometry and mathematics. There may be codes throughout this whole kind of design. You know, every single angle,
Brutal.
length, orientation
Brutal.
are something more than we realize. And so there's still these different aspects that these brilliant people were building into their sites.
There is a lot to it. So, yeah.
And I'm imagining now, you were talking about, you know, there'd be places where light could come in, and it would, of course, it would move during the day. And if there was water in there too, as like reflecting pools, that would have been really beautiful. You know, like water, light shafts of light coming in, hitting water, and bouncing back up on the ceilings, and just, I don't know.
Keep that thought. Keep chatting. But I just wanted to point this out as we walk up here. This is probably one of the best examples of something you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
Look at the left side and the right side walls. Look at the shapes in the walls, and you have that mirror, that matched shapes, kind of the symmetry of the blocks. This isn't random. So look at the left and the right side of the blocks as we walk up here. But I think you're right about the functionality of these buildings and the angle on astronomy and using them as solar temples and marking things with light and cycles. It shows an understanding of cycles, right? I think alignment is a serious clue, and to I think either dating and then also understanding some of the sophistication of the original builders.
I still think one of my preferred ideas right now is that the original structure was
Is
not
it?
designed for people, but
Oh my
designed
God,
as
guys! I've been
some
like,
sort of function.
whatever. I mean, honestly, I'm gonna lose.
I'm not necessarily saying a power plant or whatever, but I like that idea for like the pyramid and this, you know, the fact that it's been flooded. Trying to imagine it having something to do with flowing water. I don't know, some kind of I don't know if it's power generation or.
Yeah, I mean, some form of. Who knows, right? I think some of the answers to functionality, like I said, it's a bunch of
functional
times lay outside of our
of some
perspective.
kind.
But yeah, I think you're right. I think originally some function was attached to these things. It's crazy.
And then you know, it's easy to imagine people coming later and it becoming something more for people, right? Like the religious ideas or ceremonies being built around these sites, honoring the old ones.
That's right.
Yo,
I
Egypt lore is
that
awesome.
mix.
Yeah,
To me,
we watch a lot
my
of
picture
Egypt
of
lore
it
on here.
is something along
Like
the
a
lines of
lot.
there's a mix of functional and then what's clearly representation.
Yo, for sure, dude.
ceremonial
Thank you, man.
artwork. I mean, the statues are like that. Like there's a
This is the first time in like 3 years, I know, right?
in statues, which I think are also.
I try to sprint whenever I can, just to fucking keep up the fact
what
that
we
I'm
know as a
sprinting,
dynastic
especially in the summer.
civilization, starting in that old kingdom, I think we had a strong understanding, or they were
Passing out
connected,
190,
as
nice,
they said
dude.
as well. They said that they were connected to
Nice,
their
man.
ancestors. They called themselves a legacy culture. You know, you had the Shemsu Hor, the followers of Horus, and Zep Tepi.
Yeah,
back
right.
40,000 years or whatever. And I think that's a lot of what happened. That they, along the lines, lost the ability to activate or to understand the functionality or use any of that. So these places became ceremonial. They became important and sacred and religious, and
I was
they
really
were
lucky.
built on, and they were worked up, and the ceremonies, and most of the things that we ascribe them as today as being like the temples and stuff. I'm sure that's what they were used for. We have evidence of that, but I think in a lot of cases the objects themselves and some of the structures were inherited, and that wasn't their original purpose. In much the same way as today, we use them. We now use them as tourist attractions, and we find them sacred, and we all go there. We're inheriting and reusing. I think it's the same.
So fast, I just made an link last night. Oh no way, are you serious?
It may be. I mean, one of the things that you mentioned is if we look at the Assyrian, which we're going to jump to shortly, is there's a whole kind of almost like a procession that can be carried out in honor of Osiris there. That's one of the purposes. This has all been written about by various different authors. And a similar function may have been the Osiris shaft, also on the Giza plateau. Incidentally, this is linked with this because it's on the same causeway. It's just off the same causeway from the Middle Pyramid down to the temple here. And they think that may have been, you know, certainly whether that was the original thing, we don't know, but it was certainly potentially used as this sort of resurrection of Osiris ceremony.
I think I'd do the run through it. Let's see. Well, every week at football I get injured. Use my own doing. Oh, dang, that sucks, man.
It was Robert Temple again who actually thinks there was
really
some
sucks, my man.
ceremonial aspect of the water and sailing through the
Sorry to hear, my man.
you know, either to or from the Sphinx and then back to the second pyramid as part of this process. So it's all, again, this is like, what do we know? I mean, we're just, you know, we're trying to put together the mythology with what we can see before, what is available to see now. So it's hard to gauge what was really going on. But with the precision you're finding here, it's so precise. And this is goes back to the ancient technology idea, but to be that precise, it's more like a machine. It's more like a functional kind of technology rather than it is
Good point.
temple. Because, you know, churches aren't built to that kind of level of sophistication or chapels and things like this or shrines. And so, you know, I think there's, you know, I think everything you just mentioned previously echoes that.
Yeah, and also you know, when there's ceremonies and stuff, a lot of times they have hidden clues as to what the original function of the thing was.
Like, what's
you know,
this?
because there's a memory
Like, why?
in some way that was passed down, and so the ceremony can sometimes mimic, you know, what the original function was. So
Do it today.
I don't know. It's a very cool puzzle, but we are way past our first break.
Yeah, we weren't watching the time.
I was going to ask you guys. But
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Sorry about that.
Scotty AV goes hard.
All right, we'll be right back.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen.
He's like the Rooney.
Brothers of the Serpent here with Hugh Newman and
He's like
in
the Rooney of
Uncharted
England.
X. And we're going to go back through what we just went through because it was a lot.
Yeah, it was.
Footage.
So we got different
Rooney
footage
is
from different
actually his
times.
older
Yep.
brother.
This is. I think this is mostly all footage from last year, so fresh. A lot of that footage of the walk through the inside of the temple was, I think, 2016 era, and this is 4 years later in late 2020. It's a similar area. So this is that entranceway with those blocks that go around the corner. And again, it's I think a lot of these surfaces, while they're rough today, I think they were originally flat and smooth.
Why?
If not polished, and there's a few examples here
Don't
and
leave
there
anything out there, man.
of
I'm
those
off
surfaces.
pitch
but-
feeling
and you
like
can
you
obviously
hear
see that
anything.
something's
Yeah,
happened to
buddy.
the surface of the stone, but
Even if it's just training.
it's
oh, wow.
unfortunate we don't
Insane.
have those flat surfaces to
Yeah,
test.
max out. That's how
with
you
surface
get better.
roughness meters and some of the new gadgets.
So you improve. You push your limits every
And
time.
you guys are right. Both you and Hugh have pointed out, and I'm starting to notice now, watching more videos, there are patterns that recur
Mm-hmm.
in the way the walls
Why?
are. Even though it's not completely recurring.
Right.
There's always something different, but
There's like an artistic kind of choice they're kind of playing with, isn't there? And I love that because it's like to me it's like really abstract. It's like abstract thought, abstract artistic kind of ideas are being placed within these temples or these whatever they were. They're not just constructing; they're like artistically designing, playing really with it. And one of the other things you'll notice as well, and you get to see some of this, is there are natural kind of in the granite. There's natural kind of striations, seam or streams, whatever they call it, in the granite, and they I think have been chosen artistically about where they go. Something me and Andrew discussed a lot when we were about the temple, Andrew Collins, that is.
You said you tried out different cars.
And that was all that the Assyrian as well.
Why did you try out
don't think
different
I've
cars,
seen
my
one,
man?
as you can on sort of various parts of the site. But,
Yeah.
I know there were a few in here, and they're odd. The kind of way where they're placed.
I didn't
the way they're chosen.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. There's also a stone in here. I'm sure we'll get to it in a minute. At the end of the main
Sparks.
corridor, as you come through the main door there.
I drove yesterday
Yeah,
a
I think it's
V6
like
automatic
15
Camaro,
sides or something.
2021,
Right.
2019.
We'll you see one of them seam strings there, and you see another one here above the black stone.
Above the Blackstone, yeah, that's a good.
Obviously, I mean, as I said before, I'm interested in the manual transmission, but apparently they're not making many of them. Even if you make it brand new, they might not pick up the order. They said that they make like less than 5% of cars or something manual transmission.
I was going to say, reminder that the footage is like it's just my raw footage.
So I don't know if I'm gonna
apologies
get my fucking manual transmission new.
I think we were doing a lot of talking while I was filming.
Not that I'm rich, I'd use it for Uber Eats, but
I was just gonna say it's like the cool thing about the patterns is it's like they're illustrating symmetry, but
take the
more
cars
in
to
the
test
way
track
that
and we
nature
demo
does
them.
it, where
Wow,
you can tell that there's
insane.
a pattern, say in the leaves of a flower, but from one flower to the next, they're all
Did you
different,
drive
even though
them?
you can tell like, okay, this
That's
is the
insane.
same, fundamental pattern coming out.
Yeah.
It's never perfect, and that's kind of what it does. Like you'll see this pattern over here
James
in the
Bond
joints of
connection?
the stone, and
What?
the other one on the other side. But they're
Fucking
not.
Scott is just the
exact.
coolest guy ever.
Recognizable, but not
Yes.
exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Just like me. Right.
Yeah, these pillars in the center are just massive. Although the ones at the Assyrian are even larger, and it's probably worth noting that some of these have been stood up again. Like this place was originally when I think Vice was one of the first guys that explored it. He actually blew up a couple of these with dynamite to get them out of the way to shift them, rather than try to pick them up. So he did destroy a couple of these main columns
Why?
that have now been put back up. So.
Can't believe I
Dynamite
hit
is the
them.
last thing I would imagine.
It's not
thinking
fast,
of
though.
If I found this place, like, hey, let's stuff some dynamite over here.
Yeah.
Right. Fair few of them used it.
Chevrolet is the worst CVT in the world.
Petrie kind of chided them for it with
It was terrible.
the energetic
The automatic
blasters, as he
transmission was
called them,
terrible.
of the previous era where they would,
It
well,
was
we can't
really
get through
bad.
here, let's just blow it up and see what
Obviously, I
happens.
wasn't
Marriott
going to
was
get
another
the
guy.
auto. I was
They
going to get the manual,
definitely
but
were,
man, it was really bad.
We're looking
Sitting
at these
around,
alcoves in the floor. Sorry, Ben, but before the camera
insane.
moves.
Yep.
So
Are
did you
they,
drive the cars on there? That's amazing,
cut
Scotty.
out, or is this actually
Maybe.
tiled in, and are the wall stones going below? Because it looks like some of the stones on the wall are sitting on top of that floor, but then they go down into those alcoves.
Let me, we've got a little look at one here, let's have a look. There you go. So yeah, I think they're, I think the stones go down below.
The wall stones go
Yeah.
below them.
Yeah, and then these have been tiled in afterwards would be
Okay.
my,
I think that's right. I mean, because you get like the alabaster appears, it looks like it's been added later. That's what it appears. Like, but you never
Yeah.
know. I mean, and I get a feeling some of the stones may fold into the floor level as well, but we don't see that. Maybe because you get that in the corners.
yeah, you get them
And you probably had that on parts of the ceiling area as well. If you get on top, you can sort of see strings on it. So this stone here, just top part of this shot, is one of the biggest ones in there, I think. And it's got
giant.
polygonal features. And this one again is mirrored on the other side, almost identically. It's exactly the same size. So,
Yeah. Oh, dude.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I don't.
that's okay.
I'm
No,
definitely
just pointing
probably.
that
I'm
out
gonna
and,
have to. I definitely am gonna buy a manual transmission car or
the
whatever it's
further
gonna
you
be.
get down, you start seeing more of this.
You need it. You need. You like.
intense because some of the stones get smaller.
Man, it was
descent,
And
yes.
they're still
a
mirroring
disaster yesterday.
as you go down even further. But it's utterly remarkable. When you start thinking
And
about
it's
it. And look at the angle on that as well. There's little angles
It
off
rolled.
the
What?
vertical kind of.
Yeah, that one there.
They have a lot of that going on, and then you get a little kind of polygon.
They're trying to roll the
things like
DB8?
this. I mean, why do that? I mean, it's just it makes everything so difficult. I mean,
It sure does.
just to
But
try
why?
and make it difficult for themselves. Maybe it was a test. It was like part of the initiation, like do this or you die or something. Do it properly, or
you
that's
do.
it. you know.
Yeah.
We're
Oh,
also
it's
seeing
in the
limestone
movie.
way up above. Like,
Yeah.
I understand now.
What's going on there?
Well, there was another level like
You're
to this
enjoying
whole
it?
structure. There was certainly a roof on top, if not another whole level on top of this.
No, I mean, hey, it's
Can it-
personal preference, my
limestone
man.
goes
It
up
wasn't
and
a shot at,
up again,
at
so
fucking people that
You may have been
Right.
dealing
don't
with,
have,
with
you know, that don't
multiple,
rather
like,
prefer the
actual
auto.
levels
It's
to
just
it.
and it's like we're discussing this interior
me-
structure, but it's clearly the second stage of this original building, right? Like
Yep.
you're in here, but we can't even see what because this stuff was cased around even on the inside. that original, much more
That's
ancient
right.
limestone, right?
You can see, I just saw
Sure,
in a
love it,
second
yeah.
on the top of the wall.
No, I've
you
been
can actually see sort of
I've been
gaps in
driving
stones
manual, I
would have
guess,
been like
for
lintels going across above
15 years
current
now.
lintels as well.
Long
So
ass
there would have
time.
been another roof
I'm
over
old.
the
I'm like an
top
old
of the
man.
lintels on top of the upright. So
Yeah.
and that's what some of the early descriptions talk about, some of the antiquarian
Brutal.
images.
Oh, I suck.
And like you said, the giant
Theft
limestone
prevention.
goes even higher. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
the on the outside. So I mean, what was that originally? I mean, what was the structure there originally? I mean,
And
what would that have looked like? You know, that combined with the Sphinx temple next door, it would have been absolutely mind blowing.
And how old was it to get this eroded? I'm not like you deliberately,
What is that, my man?
you know, like found pieces of limestone that were eroded and you sort of decided to build it out of that. Like it was pretty clearly made with cut blocks of limestone that have subsequently eroded and then been cased in granite. And then they still attribute the whole damn thing to the fourth dynasty. So, you know, the very beginnings of
Whoa, did I warp that box?
dynastic
Did I get
Egyptian
boosted
culture,
through
as
that
we know it,
box?
which it just doesn't make
What
any
a
sense.
crazy
It's part
run.
of the whole contradiction of the old kingdom in general. Like you can't, you know, how do you case something that's already ancient in granite and then the whole thing apparently was all just built in the fourth dynasty for one pharaoh?
Right.
This stone here on the right,
Why?
The cornerstone of that door, I think it's the one on the right, the bottom there. That is
If you take rev limiter,
one of the
confirmation.
strangest stones I think I've seen in Egypt. where
What's
it's
a rev
something
limiter?
like- how many sides has that got, Ben? It's like, was it
Yeah,
18,
tons.
17 or something?
It
And bends
limits
round
the
whole- goes through
revs?
The whole door and joins
Oh,
up with
no.
the other wall.
Let me back
So
up a
the
bit.
amount of corners and bends in one block. I mean, just to choose to do that is
Yeah.
just that one there, yeah. And
Yeah,
it's just
crazy.
I mean, I forget how many sides and corners and other things there are with that, but unless you look carefully, you just walk past it and don't notice that.
Yeah. It reminds me of a stone that's in the Coricancha.
No, it's like it's no criticism
in
against
Cusco.
people.
It
It's
does
just
the same
it's
thing.
the-
It goes.
it's
It
the
just has all
technology, I
these
guess.
angles, and it's the same sort of polygonal masonry. But there's one stone that sort of goes all the way around an inset doorway, and it's the one piece that travels all those corners.
Off the limiter.
And you know, you've got the same thing at the Inca Roca walls, the fifth so-called I think it's
Like
the
red
12
line?
angle stone. There's one big piece of granite that's got 12 faces to it that are shaped with all of its neighbours. And you know, those are even crazier because they're curved. They're not all straight sort of shapes. You can look at the alabaster on the floor here.
Yeah. Do they
Please.
know the source of all the, like, you know, the red granite, the limestone blocks? I guess came from the Sphinx enclosure.
Why?
And then where does the alabaster come from?
So alabaster, this white calcite, it's a spring. You
Yes.
have to get it. It's like it forms
Yeah,
next to
oh.
natural spring, so you have to
It was-
dig it up
it was
out. And sort
really
of for big blocks
disaster.
like this, it has to
Conditions
be
really
deep in the
disaster
ground,
yesterday.
like close to the source of the spring, apparently. According to Yusuf, from what I understand, I don't know if they have the specific source for the alabaster or not, but it has to be. There's only like a few places where you can get it in quality, like is used.
And I
here.
was using the little paddles.
All right.
Not very good.
And and then of course they attribute most of the red granite, the pink granite, to Aswan, which is 1,000 kilometers, 500-600 miles away.
Anyways,
And you know, these are
pretty bitter.
It's even as much granite as we're looking at here, we
Because-
know it's a tiny fraction of the amount of granite that was shipped up here, because again, they say first couple of courses.
It's such
of
an
the,
amazing experience.
The second pyramid cased in granite. There's granite up and down this place, like the temple, the structure in front
can
of
make
the
any
pyramid
terrible
itself was all
car
cased in
amazing.
granite. Much like, and it would have.
fun.
I think it was all the same sort of work. Most of it got quarried and knocked down, and for whatever reason, this was buried in sand and somehow preserved. But you know,
And it
as
makes every
beautiful as the
good car
Valley Temple
not
is, I
very
think
good.
it's just one of
Gotta.
many structures that were made like
Please,
this.
please.
And this is that same alabaster walls on the inside, if my camera ever focuses. Same sort of thing. Really odd that. Yeah, it's focusing on the bar. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
odd
it's- yeah.
that,
I think it's
that
the
these
precision.
weird channels and passages off to the side have these alabaster walls. Again, why? It's kind of like that.
And the
black
weight transfer.
diorite or basalt block.
The
you know,
weight
why
transfers
the
everything.
change? Why the shift?
It's massive in the corners.
Was there a reason?
What's up with the floor there? The ramp is like made of wood. So do you guys know
Yeah.
what it looks like? Is it stairs
everything.
or is it a ramp?
I don't know.
Why
Yeah.
did they floor it with modern wood?
I don't know.
Treacherous?
Well,
They moved the stool.
As far as I'm aware, the regarding the slope, I think it was a slope. I don't think it was steps on it. I mean, as far as I remember reading Robert Temple's book of that.
Please.
And the slope is very much to do with the geometrics, the golden section angles, and they were very much following those principles in virtually everything they were doing here. It wouldn't surprise me if it was like the walls were bending around underneath, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it's
Just in
insane.
that real quick shot there,
It's so
it looked
insane.
like the hinges were on both sides.
Friend wants rear-wheel drive.
of that
Actually,
opening.
no, he
Did you
wants
see
to hear
that?
no back.
Yeah, I think they are. I believe those holes are in both sides. Yes.
Sounds
Like a
fun.
double door or a locking door, I guess.
That's, I
Right.
swear to God, I said that before reading that.
Yeah. Yeah. So then we pop out and have a look at the Sphinx, which we did see a little
Yeah,
while before.
thanks
so,
guys
but
for
what I
your
wanted to do is
interest
maybe
and
we
for
move on to
hearing
some
and-
images here that I have. A couple of pictures, and Hugh, you probably recognise this site, or guess, but I think that you're looking at, in this site in question, as we just flip through these, it's another supposed Old Kingdom site. It's one that not that many people get to see. But I
Sorry,
think
what
you're
was
just
that
looking
video?
at the remnants
VTech
of
Web Limiter
something that could
compilation, I
have
get
been
it.
like this. I think this probably existed on a number of sites, and even maybe a number of places at Giza. But you know, it's another place that has these big limestone blocks, huge lumps of granite laying around, mostly all been quarried.
No way.
Which is the one that I was looking through my pictures and I was like, man, it's just like this is what that temple might look like had it all been just knocked down and quarried and,
Yeah.
and removed in the same way that so many other sites have had. And that,
I've never had a car
if it
with a
wasn't covered
limited
in
slip
sand and
differential.
preserved, or at least partially preserved for us to see
My
today,
Beamer had an open
you might see
diff
something like this.
My
is all you
330
have.
Ci
So it's
that I bought for
it's a good example of
$6,000
kind
had
of the
an
clues, like
open
this is a
differential,
good
which is
shot
great
of
for
it,
the
yeah.
street, but
giant
not
blocks
really
of
good for
granite,
drifts.
huge blocks of limestone.
It's not very powerful
Yeah.
either.
It's another
Yeah,
any
you're right.
any clue
Some of the
any
other shots, on some of the other shots you showed, you could see that
Yeah.
the limestone walls have like.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Any guesses?
No, I don't think I've been. Is this Abu? It's not Abu Rawash, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah. 'Cause
Yeah,
you've got
in
the,
the
it's
pit.
almost like a pyramid without a pyramid.
100%.
It is. Yeah, it's like with the hollowed section,
Huge
right?
interior. There's a couple of stones there as well.
Yeah.
I remember seeing.
Exactly.
I visited there
the
twice. I
worst.
think. There's one of them. It's got this beautiful curvature, a bit like you find one of the outer stones on
Right.
the Valley Temple.
Valley Temple.
That's actually one that Chris Dunn looked at, I think, as well.
That's-
But good
the
tires,
stone,
good winter
yeah.
tires here.
Yeah, and
Helps like
and just the size
insanely
of the machine.
a lot.
Yes.
That would have had to carve that would have been so big. It's unthinkable, how they could have done that.
Yeah.
But Abu Rawash is an odd one because it's like a huge pit. But
It is.
And then there's no pyramid there as such, even though there may have been, it might have all been quarried away.
Something.
And,
I think there was just from the sheer amount of rubble, and this is like I know this is like Chuck doesn't think this was a pyramid, and he thinks that there was a number of Chuck from CF Apps. There was a number of sites that weren't, and it definitely bears similarities to Zaywat El Aran. There's other great pits just like it, but when you look at, I think mostly the structure was quarried. I think there was a lot. There's so much. There is the berms of nothing but chip rubble, like. You're talking, like 30, 40 feet high, massive berms of nothing but just quarry offcuts, little chips, all limestone,
Insane.
all quarried rubble, like quarry rubbish. There is so much of that around this site. I
Wow.
think is just, this was the quarry for millennia. I think people were just taking stone from here forever, and whatever it was, whether it was a pyramid
In
or
the
not, I think
snow?
there was just a massive structure there originally, and something else going on
That's
there.
crazy.
But yeah, today it's
Or
like this
the
giant open
water?
pit. Not to divert away from it, but it's just like I think it's quite possible. My point was kind of like, I think there was just like we have with the Valley Temple. There's a stack of sites that probably had work like that on them, and we just don't have much left of it anymore today. I think you just have the tiniest of clues, which makes this such a difficult kind of space to try and actually say what was going on. But that's when I look at and see some of the stones and the big granite blocks that you do see on these places, and then might even have a couple of these on various sites. I think originally you could have had structures as big as the Valley
Oh
Temple.
my God,
in
that
these
looks
places
so.
as
That
well,
sounds
all
so
from granite.
dangerous.
Yeah, and that's interesting because if it wasn't a pyramid, but it
That
was more
sounds so
like
dangerous, man.
the Valley Temple, for example, does that hint that the Valley Temple itself may have gigantic open spaces deep beneath it, like this does.
Could be. Yeah, I think this could have just been the structure next to the pyramid that was here. You know, even though today you're just looking at a mound of limestone and some granite and this giant pit in the ground. You know, this is similar to even just what's beneath the step pyramid, although that's even grander, and that's just a straight
Nice
pit.
cars,
You've got
man.
Zaywat Al Aran, which is very similar to
911
Abu
turbo.
Rawash. And then there's a number of other
insane.
ancient pyramid sites that aren't very well documented that also have these underground structures that also have typically like granite in the bottom of them.
Is the Cayman
Zaywat Al Aran
mid-engine
looks
too?
like this, but that was found with, it wasn't
I guess
quarried.
it
Like
is.
they found granite blocks and a granite coffer, and
That's
it's
awesome,
an
bro.
incredible story. Yeah, tiled with granite. And
Sounds like you're living the life, man.
At Hawara as well, with the
Yep.
so-called labyrinth, there's a whole load
Huge.
of granite deep under it there, and we got to
Granite
walk
all
down
over the place.
underneath.
What do you do for work, Scotty? Pardon my ignorance. I don't know. Sorry if you told me that
With
before.
water,
You
yeah.
can see the beautiful kind of passageway was just precision
Why?
engineered. So there's so many of these sites. On top they're ruined, underneath it's barely been.
Brutal.
Some of them are flooded out. So, you can't
So
even
bad.
get
I'm
down
so
to
bad.
Yeah.
I think that's why. I think actual like sand and rubble kind of saved the Valley Temple, saved the
It did.
Assyrians.
Oh, come
Yeah,
on.
preserved it in a way for future generations to actually appreciate.
Yeah, it escaped the quarrying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you look at, in a lot of cases, not everywhere. Like
Pricing
Gyges and some of these
analyst
sites, you
for a
have-
car
you have
leasing
a very
company.
complex
Wow, that's
and I
amazing,
think
dude.
builder structures on top of the ground, but I think in some places, like Hawara is an example,
with
where you have
Cyber's
something
at?
more
That's crazy.
complicated and high-tech sort of underground, that then like that
Pricing
Colodogan mud
analyst,
brick pyramid, I
wow,
think,
that's
was
amazing,
probably
dude.
dynastic. Like they probably built that over the top
For
of it.
car leasing,
Much like
crazy.
I think the step pyramid was probably built by the dynastics over the top
That's
of something
wild,
that
man.
was pre-existing at Saqqara. But yeah, I mean, Hawara is such an incredible spot. I mean, if you ever read, if you want an interesting story, look up what Petrie
So you
wrote
set the
about
price
it.
of the lease?
Hawara. He has a book. He has a couple on Hawara, but when he first found what's down there, there's like a. it's like
And
a
then the resale value, the
100-ton
repurchase
block
value
of
plan
yellow
and everything.
calcite, some yellow crystal. It's almost like a box inside this crystal
Pricing
boxed
analyst,
room
yeah.
that's beneath it. That's this giant structure, and he could. It
Clinton
was still
News,
flooded in his
Wolfius
time. He
Gubbs,
could barely get down
crazy.
and document it. But then the water table, it's still down there, but the water table rose, and you can't get down there anymore. Like his story of what's down there and what he found in there is really interesting, and it's something I'm going to dig into in some point doing the video. But yeah, some incredible, unique stuff down there. Just like I'd love to eventually have someone get in there and take pictures of that box that's down there, because apparently it's one of the most incredible boxes in all of Egypt. Anyway, not
Awesome.
to divert too far from these, but I just
Future
just gonna
residual
make a point
values,
that
right?
I think these structures,
Awesome,
like
man.
the Assyrian and the Valley Temple, probably existed at a number of these
Heck
sites.
yeah, dude.
And anyway, so let's move on to the Assyrian, and I'll
That's
we
awesome.
can keep chatting, but I'll let this video roll just to set it up. So this does include a little
Yeah,
bit.
I recently got into like
like
investing information
dynastic
and
temple. I think
financial
it's
advising and
first,
stuff,
not
so I know a little bit about investments,
as they
nothing
were
about
building, it's almost like
black
they had to
book
turn it
value,
to the
price
right a
of
bit once
cars
they found the Assyrian,
into the
which sits at a
future.
different level, and
That's
so
really
we'll see
cool.
that as we kind of roll through this. It is a beautiful temple as well, and beautiful work.
This has got some interesting features just within this part, hasn't it?
It does, yeah.
That'd be something I'd like to do, something like that. Use my license for
Yep.
something like that, if that's possible.
Way back.
I guess it's
Long,
more
long
financial
way back.
analyst than advising.
And, that's an unusual thing in its own right.
Indeed.
And
These
also,
black were cool.
what was the other thing that kind of grabbed my attention? Here was quite a few bits and pieces actually. But yeah, like you
Sucks.
say, it was
Shit,
built. This was built like before. It appears to have been built.
Wow.
What was it, around 1200 BC, something like 1250, something like this. Seti reigned for like 60 odd years, and he built it, and then he appeared to have. If one of the theories, he then found the Assyrian,
Right.
and that was oriented completely differently, and you don't have temples together oriented differently in Egypt. It's not a done thing in any era, and so.
Yes.
So either he's playing with us and messing with our minds, and he did it deliberately against the orientation of the Assyrian, or he did actually find it later, and he built it in honor of Osiris.
I'm just watching beer back.
Maybe
Thanks for
in
being here,
honor
everyone.
of
Really
the
appreciate it.
Aryan from the
Beer
Giza
back.
Plateau.
I might play for another hour, and then I might
It's kind
go
of one of
outside
the-
and play some
one of the
basketball
traditional
in the
theories.
sun, maybe.
Assyrian, I think we're walking through
Different black and gold
We
box
just
using
went
position
past it a
risk
minute
for
ago.
bed.
Yeah,
I
Nice,
was just
man.
yapping away,
Yeah, it's fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, so
Pretty big
yeah, so
decision.
different
Are you held
ideas, but
accountable?
One of the traditional theories, which
I'm sorry not to stress you out about your work, but I mean, do they check your past like 5-10 year history record on
But it's so
your pricing? Sorry, not to stress you out.
Yeah. It's almost as if the temple kind of doglegs a little to the right too. Like I think there's it seems pretty.
Oh yes.
You know, there's a mass, and this is all sandstone versus the granite of the Assyrian, which is just here, and it's at a different level. I mean, clearly underground, and yeah, you don't pop them together quite like that. Yeah, it seems.
There's a whole passageway that kind of comes down from the surface or from the back end of Seti, the first temple. It's sort of to the left of this, then comes through, then changes direction for it, then eventually it goes down on a slope and comes into the Assyria. But we'll see aspects of that video.
Yes.
Is Seti the father of Ramses?
Yes.
I got that right. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
because I kind of remember reading
19th.
that he didn't quite finish that temple either, and so
Ramses
finished it off.
put his name on it. Yep.
Yeah, his name on it.
Same thing with Karnak, right? That was Ramses and Seti. Luxor as well. The 19th dynasty was a big one. He definitely was a powerful king. I mean, I've got my issues with Ramses, but I just think that him and Menkaure, I think was who was his son? It was Merenptah, I think, was his son, and they all were just notorious for stealing the more ancient work. They just would they start. I don't know who started the trend. I mean, it's been going on, that rewriting trend and overriding other people's names been going on for a while, but those guys took it to like a new level. Like and today we kind of everyone thinks that, and we make movies about him, right? Ramses, the greatest king of all Egypt, and it's I think in a lot of cases it's just he got to write his name on some of the greatest achievements of that
Scotty
culture.
the legend.
I mean, he did work, I'm sure, and he was a very powerful king. They did a lot during his time, but you can't attribute everything to him just because he put his name on it, because there's direct evidence that shows he was only the last guy to write his name on it. I mean, Petrie gets into this in detail. There's not a lot of debate about it. Like, we know that's what happened, but it's just sort of gets, no, that's Ramses. That's obviously of Ramses.
Right.
And we have it. I mean, that's the other thing too. I saw this on Twitter. Someone did a good job. Like, we have his body and his mummy, and so we can. There's like facial reconstruction been done on the bone structure and what he looked like, and it's like not even remotely close to what we would associate and call a Ramses face. Like, there's nothing. It's realms of the statues, which are all apparently of him, but they don't look anything like him.
They're all, as you know from Chris Dunn's research, they're all geometric, they're all symmetrical, they're all like precision, all down with all different golden section principles. But anyway, this is the Assyrian.
Yeah.
God, this is very nice.
They are.
I've been down here twice, got inside it twice before, so I'm quite. For a long time now, as you know, Ben, it was you couldn't go in it because of the water level, but it's kind of it's gone down further. But all this would have had like a ceiling, much like the Valley Temple. The floor slabs are ridiculous. There's all these nubs. You can even see nubs in the lower kind of pits.
Yep.
And there's a lot to say. I mean, and there's also, do you get to see any of the keystone cuts in this footage?
Yes. Yep. We'll get to some of those. Yep.
Because, one of the aspects of the keystone cuts, which is interesting, just throw this in there quickly, is the Seti put wooden keystone.
How come,
cuts
dude? I gotta do some shopping
carved
or
his
just later
name
start.
on
Yo, thanks, Scotty. Thanks, man. Thanks for being here.
So that's
Can't
why
sleep
they
at night
think,
knowing Grandpa.
Seti must have built it.
Donald, I know.
There's one
So
actually, the
insane.
Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, and so people think, oh, he built it then, but did he just put them in there himself? Because
I don't know anything about that,
water
though.
and it expands, and it kind of
So crazy.
It's not going to hold anything together like 100-ton blocks. But,
He's going to
where
prison?
the metal
That's
cuts
insane. Are you
before,
serious?
Metal clamps in there before, like we find it till the knuckle, for instance. But we can discuss that when we see some more. But
That's just so insane.
that kind of grabbed my attention.
37 charges. Wow.
I've been to the Ashmolean before him.
So insane.
God, look at this. This is megalithic heaven.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's incredible. I need like 70, 80
just
tons.
so-
These big
it's just so
central
tragic,
center
man.
blocks, massive chunks of granite.
And they've got elements
Clown
of
World's getting
polygonal
real
sort of
dark, man.
puffiness as well. You get this.
Yep.
You not only get
Not
the
that
nubs on them
hasn't,
as
not
well,
that
it's sort of
the fucking
kinda like computer
evil has
keyboards,
not
it's like
overtaken this
orientated
world.
All that back
other
wall there.
places. And
Over
then
half of
you've
the
got this
people on the
around
server.
the edge anyway, not on the main pillars and lintels. You've got sort of slightly puffy pillow-like, just very slightly. You can see it there. You can see like the little kind of striations and little scoops. You know, this is all. You've got a good light on this. Actually, this is a good time of day. You do not want to step in that stuff.
Yes, the green. Get the green is really vibrant.
Yeah, yes, vibrant is the word. One of our guys stepped in it accidentally, and he went down to his waist almost. Yeah, it's pretty rough.
It does go down like 11, 12 feet from there. There's plenty more structure beneath this. It's
Why?
underwater.
So when they found this in modern times, was it just completely buried in sand, or was there rubble? Was it rock and sand, or what?
It's both. Yeah, there was a lot of rubble, a lot of clearing out had to be done. There's a lot of work actually. I've got all the old photos I've been collecting. But just while we're in these rooms here, there's 17 of these rooms all around the whole kind of main sort of rectangular complex. And then you have the corridor which goes at 2 or 3 angles heading out of the site. And so this is
Piece of shit.
12 feet, something like that. 15,
Yeah.
something like that. They're not huge. You have to duck down to go in them.
Yep.
But you can see the cornering here as well, and you've got the drill holes for the doors.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive. I mean, this is to me this is more impressive than the Valley Temple, not just because of the size. There's just something about this which is a bit different. I mean, a little bit different to the Valley Temple. It just has this energy. It's odd. I cannot explain this.
Yeah.
I cannot work this brings out.
It's so bad.
Strange to me that anybody could think that this is the same age as the.
Wow,
Aztec
insane.
temple.
Right.
Like, why?
This
Yeah.
is granite and it's heavily weathered.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I don't understand.
Yeah. It's pretty
It's just
clearly not.
all this little detail, and like on the left here, you can see these little scoop marks and kind of shape, and it's like they've softened the stone. I mean,
Really?
this is one of the weird things. You get that a lot in Peru, as you know that, Ben. You guys know this, but you get it here, this particular site.
And
Yeah.
you were right. He is there at the perfect time of day, the perfect time of year to get that
You get
shot.
that-
Yeah, we had good light.
Give you all that detail. That's awesome.
And again, this could represent things. This could represent
The size of
the
this.
sun,
The roof.
as it shifts around in the sky, with certain things then emerge on the walls. There may be some kind of message or ritual or something like this. And so, you know, it could have aspects of that.
Thanks for the gift sub toad yesterday. That's really cool of you, man.
If you're an initiate, you know when to go there.
Why?
Yeah, this is my first time down here. Only time so far. Yeah, astonishing. This was a real goal for that trip for me to get down in here and take a closer look at it. It's just gigantic. Like just these blocks are monstrous.
Yeah.
And so
I've
well
noticed,
made.
I've noticed in every one of these little rooms that when you go in and you look in, you can see the corner blocks that make up the doorway.
Yep.
And there's a ceiling block, and it's got a platform on either side at the corner that are sitting on the corner block, so that it's hard to describe. It's like there's a projection from the ceiling block that goes down towards the corners instead of the corner block sitting directly on the. You know what I'm saying? It's interesting. Like,
Yeah, no,
it's
I think
another thing around corners. with blocks.
I think that it feels. I can't recall that if there's a limestone block in the roof of all of these either, like, or if it's a different type of stone. There might be some alabaster in there as well, but
There's I think the outer walls, which you don't see so much of. I
Jeez.
think they're quartzite. That's what I'm not sure. I think they're quartzite or a type of sandstone which you get on.
I
you
can't
don't
believe
get-
that was
you
the
don't see
shot I
so
took.
much of
That was
That's
so
what kind of-
terrible.
it's almost
That was
like
so
the
bad,
casing
guys.
around the Valley Temple of limestone.
Whatever.
You get the quartzite or sandstone here.
Why did I do
You
that?
don't see as
It's
much.
way
You see
too
that
slow.
when you go up the tunnel, you see the different types of stone more.
yep, I'm going up there now. I think.
Yeah, and but this, I mean, obviously there's the flower of lives in here.
We'll get into
9 of them, 9 or 10 of them, which are etched or painted or something. On them. People aren't sure even how they got on there.
Yep.
And they're very high up, some of them. So they must have How they got up there, we don't know. But it's just bizarre. Just on this one side here, there's a couple on this side as well.
And here, and up here.
You can, unless you go in the temple, you can only see 2 of them from steps.
That's right.
You have to go in there to see 9 or 10 of them.
So do you guys think that this structure was originally on a surface, or did they build it down in the ground?
Oh my god.
That's a good question. I mean, I can tell you what I think, and then Ben can jump in maybe. But if it is older, which there's a good case for that, then that may have been the ground level, or it may have been just below ground level. It may have been like the Valley Temple, where they kind of landscaped it and then built it just below ground level, perhaps. It may have been ground level at the time. If this is super ancient, 10, 12,000 years ago, then maybe it was ground level, because the way the sand moves around in this part of the desert, that's certainly possible. But if Seti did build it, if you look at that as a theory, then and if it is honor of Osiris, it would have to be underground anyway, and so that's why they believe Seti may have definitely done it, because that's part of the tradition, of the Osiris kind of story, where you have to go underground to kind of carry out the ceremony and the ritual.
I share that. Share your views on it. I don't. I think it's. I suspect it's older, and it definitely goes deeper. So, I don't think this was the original level. I think it was certainly parts of it were intended to be underground. Whether or not the same level that existed then when they built the temple was the same level when this was original, I don't know, but it does feel like certainly parts of it were meant to be under the ground.
Well, this bit I've not been into before. This is the opposite side to where the tunnel is.
That's right. So another whole room here.
I think this was flooded when I was last here, so this is interesting. So
So
you
has
got these upright pillars here as well. Are these freestanding, or are these built into the wall?
That pillar, I think it was into the wall, and then you also have this A-frame kind of roof in here.
That's similar to the other side as well, isn't it?
It is.
You get to the tunnel and so forth. That is very interesting. You get this inside some of the pyramids on the Giza Plateau, this kind of roof design as well. So that would at least be contemporary. If we're looking at age.
This feels.
With the Giza Plateau,
This feels very much like the Khafra pyramid, the chamber inside the Khafra pyramid, which is the same sort of A-frame roof to it. And then you also have the so-called Queen's chamber in the main pyramid that has an A-frame roof. And interestingly, there's a slope. There is the third pyramid has an arched, a curved roof, and then the only other place where I've seen that is at Lahoun. It's that granite chamber that's beneath the Lahoun pyramid that has that incredible precision box in it. Also has a curved ceiling, and that's like a whole chamber that's made out of granite.
So these I've not seen. I've not seen this one. So these pillars here.
There you go, freestanding. Yeah, that one's freestanding. I don't know. Yeah, it's like they're evenly spaced along the edge there. If we go back, you actually can see.
I think this must have been
3, 4
closed
of
when
them.
I was there. I did not see this particular spot.
Thanks for being here, everyone. I really appreciate it. I really do.
Just some of the blocks going.
Thank you for
over
watching the ads too.
this angle, ridiculously from the looks of it.
Yep.
Right.
Huge.
How long would you say this room is?
Pretty big.
Looks like it's 40 feet long.
Something like that. Yeah, that's probably a good, maybe a little longer even.
Maybe longer, yeah.
Yeah. I want to say 20 or 30 meters. So.
Rear wheel drive, yeah, right.
What is this?
Some 5D chess you're playing there, Toad.
What's that? It's like 70 feet, 60 feet. There you go.
Something else, isn't it?
Yeah, this place was cool.
Yeah, we're up on time again, guys.
All right.
We're not paying enough for this video. So
I figured we'd be up on time in a minute here. All right, I'll pause it here.
all right.
We come back from a break.
Fantastic.
Oh my god.
Okay, so we're back from the break and we're checking out more of the Assyrian, and the footage we've got here, we're just deep within it, private access visit clearly.
Yep.
This is where you usually get to. This is where most people kind of have to stop. You see that rope there, and it's actually a bit further up actually, and you just get the view down on it. So to get in there, now they actually have access, you know, which is brilliant. I mean, we do that on our tours, you do that on your tours, Ben, and
Yep.
it's really essential. I mean, for the megalithic people with that interest or the ancient technology
Jeez, like,
interest,
come
they really
on.
have to do that.
Yep.
I think it's one of the most intriguing places to actually go
Good.
inside of in the whole of Egypt.
I agree. Yeah, this was my first chance to get down here, and definitely it'll be included on any of the future trips that I do. I think it's, as you say, just essential to get down in here. And I know you're going back this year, right? You got a tour in November.
November, yeah, it's postponed from last year, of course. And so, yeah, we've got one in November. We're doing that with my buddy Jim Vieira. We talk a lot about giant research, but he's a stonemason.
Right.
He's like, you know, he's the same sort of thing as you said,
Please,
different types
why?
of stonemasons. So he's got this background of a professional stonemason. So he goes there and it's like, whoa, you know, he kind of sees it from that perspective. So we have we're looking at we love the ancient technology side of it, but Jim's a bit of a mystic as well, and I've kind of got that kind of thing going on. JJ's going to be with us, who does brilliant research on ancient symbolism. She decodes stuff as we go around.
Oh
sites.
man, yeah, I think I'm gonna go outside
Yeah,
in
so, yeah,
maybe
we're doing
half
it
an
for
hour or
November.
so.
There's a few spaces open for that. And,
I think so.
Yeah, hopefully we can all collaborate on some giant
might stream
trip
it.
one day and get like
I'd love that.
30 of us
I
hosts.
might not.
I'd love that. Yeah.
Because the stuff you learn, I mean, it's like sometimes you get
Yo,
people on these
Moonraker.
trips who just give you the insights you were waiting for, and you can spot something and see something. It's actually quite useful to go with a bunch of people.
Indeed. Yeah, I'd love that. Yeah, I am hoping to get back to Egypt this year as well. I'm in the final throes of planning a trip. It's one that also been delayed a couple times. In fact, this was the original trip from last year. I've had a long wait list of people that couldn't make it because of 2020. I'm hoping that'll be in October, and I'll get to announce something about that in the next couple of weeks. I'm in the last phases of doing the same thing, but yeah, I'd love to get together on a trip at some point and do something. Yeah, that'd be cool. Go
This
ahead.
is the tunnel, isn't it? This is the route. You've come out of the main temple and you've taken a right here. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
Why?
this is actually a slope, correct, going upwards.
Yep.
If I kind of lost track of where we were for a second, and this goes way up, and then it takes another corner, I think. And this is all constructed. This is a different type of construction. This isn't,
Yes.
Oh my God.
This is not granite, is it? This is kind of like sandstone. Or
It is, I think, yeah.
Local stone. You can see that on the ground there.
It's not granite.
And so this is why it's thought that this was added later and was designed to connect to this discovery that Seti and his group made,
Right.
1258 BC or whatever. So that's one of the ideas. But obviously, the academic Egyptologists believe this was one big design. It was actually built by Seti as part of his bringing back these old traditions. So the jury's out on that one. I'm with the old school. I think it's older. I think it's got this different orientation. There's been some research even on the archaeoastronomy of it. There's people like Freddie Silver, who's like an alternative historian. He believes that this would align precisely with Orion, going back 10,500 BC, which matches the whole kind of Sphinx idea that Hancock and Duval put forward. This going back to the time of Leo and so forth. And there's something in that kind of rings true with me. But with there's so little research and dating has actually been done here. It's quite startling.
Yeah. And of course, these walls are beautifully, artwork is just, and some of the colours are still showing, and this is thousands of years old. Like, this work it's beautiful, actually, to get in here and look at this, and clearly dynastic.
Is the roof overhead stone?
Yes,
It's
parts
like
of it are stone.
this staggered pattern on that roof.
They're modern repairs and additions of the skylights, but yeah, it was a constructed
Brutal, man.
tunnel. Yeah.
So brutal.
And a lot of it was probably caved in.
Yeah, I think a lot of the roof has been reconstructed here as well.
Okay.
So that a lot of it has been moved around. I mean, obviously they're able to move anything in the Assyrian version. It's just down heavy.
So what's
I have no health.
they're telling a story on the way
I
down
will
the
pass
hallway?
away.
I haven't read an analysis of it, but yes, I'm assuming there's a number of stories being told on here. It's absolutely covered. top to
Yeah,
tail.
I mean, one of the ideas that Andrew Collins talks about when he came on our previous trips. He's done a lot of research on Egypt. He's one of the top people on it, in my opinion. And he thinks it's this whole elaborate ritual and story of Osiris, and was played out, and so much of that was probably part of this route going down into the underworld. Duat and so forth, and so much. So even in Assyria, there would have been a giant megalithic roof over most of it, possibly all of it, with probably a few gaps, which I still believe were used.
Beer back. Thank you for bringing your beer back one sec.
Like a solar kind of light phenomena thing, lighting up certain parts of the site at different times of the year. So a lot of this would have been still that, but this would have been a Seti's time. They were kind of adding this to perhaps this previous temple, but adding their ideas of what they thought was that may have been used for.
Yeah.
So there's a big mystery here. I mean, it's really unclear. I mean, I've read as much as I can on this. I've talked to top people on this, academics and alternative researchers, but this is kind of where it all changes. Just here, this is where you're going back into
granite,
going back into the Assyrian proper here.
Yeah, just the massive granite blocks.
This is kind of where the real temple begins.
And there's all rubble on either side too.
Yeah, yep. And a lot of it's been quarried. You see a lot of those dashed lines. They're all quarry marks. So this was quarried. Quite a lot of the blocks. I mean, they're still there. The ones that weren't successfully quarried, but yeah, they've been hacking at this for a while as a granite quarry essentially.
Yeah, I've seen there's holes in the corners of some of these blocks too, where they're trying to peel pieces of it off.
Yep.
That scooping pattern
Yeah.
that is on the faces of those granite stones, I don't know. I'm definitely looking into the ultrasonic, using vibration to cut through that stuff. I think
Risky leap.
I mean, because again, you got this ridiculously obvious Peruvian connection going on.
Yeah,
with that
it's
scooping.
same.
It's so obvious. I mean, and like even this is one thing a lot of people I talked about this with Ben in the podcast. It's like even at Stonehenge, there's 2 or 3 stones that have scooping in them. So some of them are really slight scoops. Others are giant ones. That's on actually a recumbent flat stone on the ground, one of the trilodons. And there's another stone there as well, which even has a nub sticking out. But this is at Stonehenge. No one knows about this. No one has a clue. And like, I've been there so many times, having basically my back garden virtually, that I get a chance to go in there quite often. And it is exactly like what you find at Ollantay Tambo and like Aswan Quarry, and parts of this look a bit like that. So what on earth? What on earth is going on? Why are you getting the same thing as Stonehenge? And and we have to, there's another obvious connection. These are like trilithons, like you get at Stonehenge.
Right.
It's a bit too obvious to mention, really, but it's but that is a similarity. You can't deny it. And there's actually mortise and tenon joints you get here, and you get that in parts of the Valley Temple as well. You get mortise and tenon joints with a little nub and a little hole in the stone above it to hold it in place. So same elements of technology being played out in different parts of the world.
I'll just flip back to the. I think you're right.
Oh, yes.
The flower of life. We'll pause on this briefly. Interesting that, as you say, like no one's real sure if it's etched in there. Yusuf has an interesting take on it. He thinks it's a distraction. He's like, people always talk about the flower of life, but what they're sort of missing the innate technological wonder of the thing it's drawn on. Like this 70-ton block of granite that's been precisely shaped and moved and shipped here. But yeah, no one really knows. Like some people think Pythagoreans did this or something like that. In later periods. Obviously, doesn't seem to be. I like this here. It's obviously a sign that other people have found this place to be remarkable and sacred, pretty clearly. So whatever they did or however they did this, it's an indication that. I mean, this place is pretty profound when you go in it. It's like, you just have a brief think about it and you start going, holy crap, how did anyone do this?
Yeah, I
But
didn't.
with just as geometry, I mean, I know I've been in there where Yusef is kind of sort of not so interested in that. But the flower of life,
Oh, it's
you know,
incredible. Yeah,
they're pretty big, you know, and they're really hard. You try drawing that on paper,
very
you know,
difficult.
even with a compass and everything, compass and pens and everything. But you do it on a bit of granite, like 15 feet up, you know, etching it into a wall.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is a mystery.
that is tough. That is tough to do. I mean, regardless of the ridiculous size of
What?
the blocks. You know.
Well, yeah, no, I have a T-shirt with it on there. I mean, there is a lot to. I don't want to dismiss the flower, like the whole what it represents in terms of sacred geometry and everything it's profound too. But I was just relating. Yusuf had that interesting point because everyone's looking at it. He's like, wait, you know, look at the block it's in. But yeah, it's an
You were
interesting.
dogging on the flower of life, bro.
Yeah, I
Come on.
was. Yeah, I did. I should do it. I'll wear my Flower of Life T-shirt for the next one.
Gave
I
that
swear.
T-shirt away.
No, it's
No, but it is,
George
yeah,
Howe.
it's the geometry, you know, is kind of a universal language.
yeah.
So yeah, it is interesting that would be put there, and I like your
Is something
point
on the
that-
ceiling?
that somebody would look at that and say, okay, this is other people are recognizing that there are geometric principles
Does
that
it-
work.
Yeah. Does it show up in other Egyptian art anywhere? Wow.
That's a good question.
It is.
I don't know, but they were certainly using them same geometric principles.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but in just the design of the sites, you know, without doubt. I mean, look at even your favourite guy Ramesses was the symmetry.
With
and
his
the geometry
face.
on his
Yeah.
face, yeah.
It's just interesting that if it's not really an Egyptian thing to draw.
Okay, one more
I
hour.
wonder- and that's why I
Or not
guess
1 more hour, half an hour more.
maybe,
I've heard that. Yeah.
that makes sense.
Possible theory.
Yeah.
Really, thanks a lot for being here. Thanks a lot for being here. Half an hour more, and then I'm going to
There's one thing, you know,
sign off. I'm going to go outside, get some sun, shoot some hoops, play some basketball. I might stream it.
Ptolemaic people with their problems. They were probably just sitting on top of the
Yeah,
rubble,
it could have been. Yeah.
etching it in, so they wouldn't have had to climb up scaffolding. So there's
Floating
some
in a
practical
canoe.
reason why they're in there. Yeah, if it was full of water, yeah, for sure. But this is a good shot here. It just shows you the magnitude.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, just to think about quarrying these 100 miles from Aswan, or is it 80, 90 miles from Aswan?
Yep.
Uh,
This is
where this
Upper
came
Egypt.
from?
But
And
still.
so you've got to bring that over, you've got to quarry it, bring it over, carve granite into that shape, somehow lower it if it was lowered. It's
Put
just,
into place.
yeah, it's just absolutely remarkable. Then you see these beautiful.
And then right there, they were flattening the wall and stopped. That's the most interesting part of
yeah.
this site to me.
Wow.
The blocks are pillowed out, and then
Up
somebody was
here.
coming along and flattening it out and making the whole thing smooth, and they
Yeah.
never finished. Look at that. That is, you can see where they just stopped work. And
Yeah, you're right.
gigantic. They were smoothing the wall out, taking off a couple of inches of material to make the whole thing flat.
There are a couple places like that. It's very much like the third pyramid to have that same spot that's flat and then it pillows out around it.
And there's something
Dunno.
similar in the, what is it, it's not Karnak, what's the place with the wheels?
Oh,
Why?
Abu Ghraib.
Konar. Yeah.
It's in India.
Okay, India.
So this is a completely different place, but
Egyptian
but
ones, never mind.
they're carving these like giant, very incredibly intricate wheels, and there's a place where you see one of the wheels, and halfway up, it's all like beautifully intricate, and then at the top it's just blank. Like it looks like some kind of CNC machine was going in and making all the detail and just went halfway up the wheel and stopped. Like there's all the little figurines and they're just really detailed and then they're gone on the upper part. It's very similar.
This shot here, just in the middle, you see that?
I can't believe it.
It's like a tiny little stone.
Yeah, there's another one here too.
You get a few of these as well. This is very Peruvian again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a little detail. I mean, there's no purpose for that unless they're just playing. I wonder,
Right.
how much of this. One of the things it was quite hard to make out here is if stuff's mirrored, like it is in the Grand Temple. I
Right.
think some of it is.
Some of it is, I
Part-
think. Yeah.
Some of it is
so now I also see that the doorway is cut up into the lintel block. That's what I was seeing when I was looking in there.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, this here. Yeah. Yeah. You see that on all of them.
You get that. You get the same technique, I think, at Tiwanaku.
Yep. I think so.
Bolivia. So, and at some of the classic sites, Cusco and Sacred Valley.
Yeah, I think Coricancha.
What possible purpose does that serve other than aesthetics? I mean,
Yeah, I don't know. It's another inside corner.
Got you here for answers, bro.
It's the default answer for the actual purpose.
something is swimming under there.
Yeah, there might be a swamp monster in that green lagoon. Ugh. Yeah, it does again. It's another 12 or so feet, and there's a connection. So they have a problem pumping out enough water because there is a shaft that leads off and down from the area that goes down another, I think, 12 feet or something. There's more granite blocks. There's a shaft that then also leads off a small shaft. That apparently that's where a lot of the water comes in from, but it leads off in a direction. I'm not sure anyone knows where that goes. But it's been constructed, so there were things below this as well, and we just don't know. And in fact, I heard the guards when we were there talking about it. They were literally saying that they'd be pumping out the water, but it's a lack of funds at the moment. They just, because of the tourism and everything, they're just like, no one's coughing up enough money just to even get a couple guys in here working on with machines to pump out the water. Which is, I'm just like, baffled by. Like, who wouldn't want to do that investigation?
All right, let's go get a job, guys.
Yeah. I mean, just pitch one of these universities, guys that have those partnerships with the Council of Antiquities. I don't understand it. It's just what frustrates me the most about this stuff is I don't understand why there isn't more effort done in tackling this and using things like laser scanners, like proper high definition ones, and all of the surface roughness tests. More investigation into how these could have been made, like the construction methodology. It never seems to be the focus of the authorised institutions of investigations, and it's just why is it down to the tourists and the groups that are in like this that come along with iPhones and LiDAR scanners, and that's the only time that sort of thing ever happens. I just feel like it's the tools we have today are non-invasive. They won't hurt anything, and they could shed a lot of light on this stuff. I think there's a lot of institutions that have the access to these sites and the partnerships to research them. Why they're not doing it?
That's the thing. I get that a lot. That it's like going back to the time of Flinders Petrie, not later with Chris Dunn. That they tried to reconstruct like a smaller version of the pyramid. People have failed miserably trying to do it. They've never even tried to reconstruct the Syrio temple or anything like this because they know they can't do it. But one of the things Petrie coming up with, which is what Chris Dunn commented on, I love kind of looking at Petrie stuff over the years, is that as technology developed during the 19th and 20th century, it suddenly became clear how they may have been able to do things, like the cauldrons, for instance. Because there was a time when they were discovering these cauldrons before that had even been invented in modern times. And as the technology moves on in our era, it almost parallels what they were capable of back then. So soon we're going to reach a point, not too far maybe in the future, where suddenly we know how they did it.
That was really dumb.
That's right.
So
I don't know how you heard me.
like magic,
Because I only shot 3 bullets, I think, if I remember right. I think I only shot 3 bullets. Maybe because I was near the middle of the room, maybe on the left side instead of on the right side. Who knows? What the fuck?
they were up to, and I think this is one of
That was hilarious, though, man.
we're not
The run, thanks, dude. Yeah, that was a good run.
Exactly
That was a really good
I
run.
had the same thought. It's just like I think the answers to
That was a very
well
good
and truly
forced,
advanced a lot of
stuck
directions,
pace.
but our civilization's technology went in a certain direction.
It's really a shame. I gotta
And
look
think
up
there
more
is
at the
so
body
there's-
armor
and
too. I
in
almost
some
didn't pick
other
that up
directions,
again.
We're only getting started. And I think some of the answers to this stuff may lay in some of those realms that we have yet to fully understand or to properly investigate. And I just think we should be open to that possibility when we're looking at these sites, because that seems to be a strong possibility when you look into like the construction methodology, the precision, and all these other aspects of this stonework, and that opens up the door to functionality, and purpose. And but if we consistently just try and put this stuff in the box of, well, it's copper chisels and flint chisels, and it's all ceremonial, and it's all for rituals and things, and it's all within that box of what we know of this primitive civilization that didn't have this capability, then we'll never get there. But I think that's the technology aspect's one that's just like that. It always drives me insane. And Flinders Petrie understood it. It wasn't until his time that we had enough capability to even put some of this stuff into context, to understand that we're looking at a real mystery, That's it's a meta point in all of this, isn't it?
Let's risk it. And we threw the runaway.
And I agree. I mean, what I've got a question actually. Do you know if they found any metal in any of these keystone cuts? Because I haven't found anything. I know there's some metal has been found in the Great Pyramid, alloys and stuff like this. But here, are you aware of anything? Because I've not heard of it.
I don't think so. I don't think they've really found much at all. It all would have gotten removed, I imagine. I know there's some keystones, some of these cuts that have that, like the green in granite that have the green.
We have been having good runs though.
In copper, I guess. And so there's some evidence of that. But no, I don't know of any that have been actually found with metal.
Like I said earlier, there's that one example I think you must know that set his name carved on it.
Right, of wood.
But that could have easily been put in
later.
And to the metal disappear. But who knows? That's one of the ways they kind of dated the Assyrian.
Right.
These wooden keystone.
If there are metal keystone clamps, there's still a bunch in there. So stones that are still together.
Yeah, some of them are stone. Like there's that. It's almost as if it's like a slit-on hinge, but I don't know if that's exactly what that is.
Yeah, that's what that looks like, a tongue and groove.
Yeah, I'm not convinced it is after taking a closer look at it on this trip, but it's almost like it's been cemented in now or something along those lines. But it's definitely been like quarried. That whole block's been quarried, and there's a similar like cut on top there as well. That's
Hi, my love.
on top of that block, so it's another like some sort of keystone
How are you, gorgeous?
groove. And there could have been another layer on top of there too. I think it was.
Yeah. I want to
What's
add
that?
what you guys were saying about these ancient sites, and I think this is
Am I working?
the other thing that bothers me about this. Is
What do
it
you
doesn't
mean?
look like they
Why
ever-
do you say that?
Whoever was building them, however long ago it was, they were
Oh
in
no,
mid-work,
I'm streaming.
and it
Yeah.
stopped, and they never came
How
back.
are you,
to it.
gorgeous?
And you see this at Ollanta
I was
Tambo.
giving you the credit.
You see this here.
Serapeum.
Yeah, at the Seraphim. Like
I'm
it's-
streaming. How are you, my love?
Something happened to people who could do stuff like this.
Because you could read my message and send me the message.
I saw. I read it, my love. I thank you so much.
They're in the middle of working on this.
Oh, your new one. Okay. I didn't see that one. Sorry. Send your resume with a message. That was mine. Right. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
They're building the blocks. They're moving the blocks into the Seraphim.
Thank you, gorgeous.
They're moving giant blocks up, down one mountain.
Thank you,
up
baby.
another, and they
I'll do
did
that.
Get to complete.
I will
the
do that.
project.
Okay.
Right.
That's the thing that haunts me about
Yeah,
some of
gorgeous.
these
How you
sites.
doing? How's
Okay,
you
I'm
do?
to them
A construction
What's that,
project
babe?
that never got completed.
I want to let you finish what you're doing.
Never came
Oh,
back to it.
how's your day going, my love?
It implies something happened that
It's
was
been-
catastrophic, right? This
Okay, I need to go. I need to go.
Yeah.
Okay, I love you.
Yeah,
You look so beautiful today.
I can't argue that. That does seem like
I
some
love
of it
stuff.
seems unfinished, and a little random. But I also don't know if that's the right. I mean, it's just I don't know if that's. If there was it may if that's a part of the perspective that we're looking at it in terms of how we would do it. There's I mean, I get the same feeling. Like it definitely like there's boxes in the hallway. There's unfinished boxes. There's the work on the third pyramid here at Ollanta Tambo. Looks like stuff was in motion for sure. Like Ollanta, the blocks across the river, like they were being pushed. But it does something may have happened. I mean that it does seem to indicate some sort of cataclysm. With some of these walls in the third pyramid and things, I just don't know. Like, with the finishing parts, it's just I can't tell if that's. It's certainly intentional or not. I mean, it definitely seems like we're halfway through it, and they started it, and then it just tools down. So.
Yeah, and I mean the big obelisk, like if the story that we're told
Right,
is
yeah.
they're cutting that thing out and they find a flaw,
Yeah.
they're like, okay, we can't use it. Well, you cut most of it out of it.
You would take some blocks from it, yeah, for sure.
You would start using it for blocks, right?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's like the same thing at Baalbek. Those blocks that are still in the
Yeah.
quarry.
Quarry.
They're like, well, they were too big. Just put them down. No, you would cut that up into smaller blocks.
That is something I've researched quite a lot actually, is the idea of the quarry being the sacred birthplace of the later temple. I've written a few articles about it for all these sites, including as well. And one of the ideas is that where you take the stone from, that's like taking it from
Why?
the mother, it's like taking it from Earth, Gaia. And so that is the sacred spot. But then you actually choose where that goes very carefully to be used. And there's often a geodetic principle between where it's quarried and where the site actually finishes up. Like for instance, Aswan Quarry is, if you draw a line from the centre of the Aswan Quarry stone to the centre of the Great Pyramid of the Giza Plateau, it's 365.4 nautical miles. And that is exactly the days in the year, for instance. We have the same principles with the Bluestone Quarry in Wales, linking with Stonehenge. There's a perfect geodetic 5, 12, 13 Pythagorean triangle linking them up with this small island and Stonehenge and the Bluestone Quarry, and it goes on and on and on. You like go into all the different sites, and you don't mess with the sacred origin point of the temple. So this was, leave that alone. And actually, like in Olmec Land, for instance, like the basalt quarries and the Tuxtlan Mountains, there's actually areas where rituals today are still carried out on these particular quarry sites. And so it becomes part of the whole system. And so sometimes leaving something unfinished is like also a signature of the builders, of the kind of godlike builders who are building these things. So there's different, it's just a theory. It's just something I've kind of been looking at over the years, and I keep seeing the same kind of ideas pop up. There's always the biggest stone to the quarry. That's one thing that interests me. Like,
Moai too,
big
right?
stones, Baalbek, Aswan, even at Easter Island, the largest Moai is unfinished in the quarry. Potentially at Stonehenge, there's actually two quarries, there's two types of stone there. So there's something about that. I think the Aswan and the granite quarry is really interesting. Because some of the granite also came from Elephantine Island as well. Not all of it came from this is the same area, that's not obviously. But so it's transported over water, then taken up the Nile, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, there's more. I think there's more to it than just leaving it unfinished. There may be a purpose for it.
That still implies a global tradition.
It does, yeah. And again, it's just theory, so.
No, I think that's fascinating. Yeah, it is. But if it's on Easter Island, all these sites, all those things, you're still like, okay, whoever was doing this is still got the idea like the quarry is the mother who leave the biggest stone there on purpose, and that was happening all over the world.
That's a great example here of the same. I was trying to say like the perspective. Like it's we look at it from a work side and a thing, and we're like, it looks unfinished, but like from a geodetic perspective, there's significance in some of that stuff from other perspectives, and that's I think understanding perspective is such an important.
And it's just working out, like, there's always this question mark. It's something that's come up a lot in this today in our talk today. Is it unfinished or is it deliberate like that? So, is it an artistic thing that the certain designers or artists or designer, whatever you want to call them, were actually like, this is my thing, this is my signature. I want to leave that bit flat, and that bit's going to be happy next to it. This is something I want to continue. It's a tradition, of this particular line of initiate builders, that only they do. It could be connected worldwide. It could be this tradition. Because the people who were building stuff had secrets. Not everyone knew about this. This was a secret tradition, and it was passed down. It's ended up in the realms of the secret societies and through Masons. Everyone knew this because that's their kind of prerogative. And so we don't know the deeper reasons, but it's just it's so mind blowing when you see all the. You find so many of this what appears unfinished, and also these unfinished quarries. It's just absolutely bizarre. But, with more
Yeah,
research.
yeah, you're right. Now that I'm thinking about it, I can see esoteric, like the imperfection is put in there on purpose.
Yeah.
Like that is a tradition that is found in certain, like I know, like I can't remember exactly all the details, but the like Arabian rug makers, I think, did this. That they would purposefully put the masters would purposefully put a flaw somewhere in the tapestry that they would make or whatever. You know, and it's on purpose because they're saying that like I'm not like good God. God is perfect. Or at least that's what I was reading that it may mean. Nobody, I'm not sure if anybody knows, but yeah, the idea of leaving imperfections on purpose is
There you go.
Why?
And the symmetry being not quite right in the temples, like there is some sort of meaning and symbolism and
yeah.
purpose of something to that stuff. It's you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, honestly.
Great.
While you were talking about that, my brain went in a completely different direction.
If you think
but,
about it,
I was thinking about
it's a
the,
really interesting concept.
You know, the magnetic field
If you look at Petra,
lines that
too.
are in the rock, right? Because like when the rock was formed, the magnetic field was a certain way, and so a bunch of things are aligned within the stone. So if they were thinking in this,
Maybe they just
geodetic
use their
sense,
hands. They
cutting these rocks out,
placed
not
it
taking
like
some
Lego
far
blocks or
away.
something.
Maybe they mark the stones and they put them all together where those field lines are still
Maybe not like Lego blocks,
together,
but
right?
like friggin',
I'd be interested
I don't know,
to know
size of a fridge or something for
if
them.
this was a tradition, because we typically only do these core samples
that makes any sense.
on things that are debated as to whether or not it was built by ancient people or it was or it was a natural thing, like with rock wall.
And I mean, who knows
So
what
when they
existed
find
on this?
that
If
all
there
the
was
magnetic field lines
dinosaurs
are
on
the
this
same,
earth,
they're like,
you
it's
tell me there
natural.
can't be friggin' tall
But if there was
humans
a consideration,
or tall monkeys,
There's one place where they
cognitive tall monkeys.
this is Avebury.
When you have fucking Tyrannosaurus rexes and shit,
And also
or even like a whale.
or like heads, for instance. Some of them have magnetic
Or a shark,
hotspots in the temple on the side of the head, or in the belly of some of the
the
later
megalodon.
This has all been tested, research put out there. At Avebury, every single stone at Avebury Stone Circle, for instance, is 99 stones, maybe 100. They're huge stones. This is seriously megalithic, this place. And every single one is magnetic north, is aligned to the next stone, and to the next one, and to the next one. They're not, and they've been tested thoroughly. So somehow they knew the orientation of the magnetism within each stone, lined them all up. And then down the avenues, megalithic avenues actually, all the stones point to each other in a sort of straightest line. So that is certainly something going on with that. And I don't know, I mean, I assume that was going on in Egypt. It's just, it makes sense because it's sophistication. If we look at, obviously, Chris Dunn, I mean, his work on the Giza power plant, that would apply there very much so.
very
Yeah.
cool. Wow. Well, that's another 30-minute segment.
Yeah.
Band has run out.
Indeed.
Man, that's been awesome, guys.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Happy to do it. Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Hugh. It was,
No, I appreciate it. You've just taken me on a little guided tour of a couple of sites I've missed. I really want to get back to, so delighted.
it's, yeah. Good stuff.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Hopefully we can do it again sometime.
We shall.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks guys. I appreciate
Cheers.
it, and hopefully see you all in Egypt sometime.
Yeah, let's do that. That'd be great.
Oh. Please. Jeez. What? So dumb, man. You know it, Moonraker. Sugar-free. Will void your life insurance policy.
Imagine for a moment a brilliant young man.
And also cataclysmic damage, not damage from an army moving in and knocking the noses off of statues or something, but where giant multi-ton blocks have been snapped in half as if they were styrofoam. And so, oops. Also, all around the world, at least 400 different cultures talk about a flood that destroyed their home world, whether it was a little island or whether it was a large landmass. The survivors had to move. The cataclysm happened very rapidly. And so what we also know is that between 12,800 and 11,700 period is a phenomenon that happened called the Younger Dryas. And that's where over the course of about 1,000 years, the world's oceans rose by between 350 and 400 feet in two massive pulses. So that's what we think about in terms of the flood, and that is what we would think about in terms of the destruction of Atlantis. It wasn't that so-called Atlantis sunk, it's that the oceans rose and the survivors had to leave. So it's a pretty simple phenomenon that happened, but it was global in nature. And there's more and more scientific evidence backing up the fact that these events occurred from the scientific community. So here's our first example.
Yeah, man,
I'm going to go through. I'm
gonna sign off though in like 5-10 minutes, to be honest, because it's a nice day outside and I'm gonna shoot some basketball hoops and it'll be nice.
On the photos too much, because I want you to see the simple pattern. And this is an example. This is
Thanks for being here.
Very
low quality jokes, still get a laugh. Haha, yeah, right.
And I've been there 80 times, and every time I go, I ask one of the local people who work there. They're the ones who are the caretakers and also the people who do the repairs. And so I asked them about this location. I said, has this been reconstructed? And they said, no, this is exactly how the Inca left it. All we did is we removed any plants that were growing in between the stones. So if you look at the top stones, you see they're just simple stones, rough, put on top of one another. But the base
I think I'm
is
gonna
megalithic.
sign off.
Those are multi-ton blocks.
I think the next glass.
And also notice that you see the vertical gaps. They're quite even.
I'm gonna take a
So what
break
that tells
after the
us
next
was
glass,
that
and
this
then I'm
site
probably
was
gonna
hit
decide
by
to sign
a
off.
massive earthquake of 9 point or 9 plus. And if this
Maybe.
had happened during Inca times, the upper wall would have fallen down. So this tells us, both by the precision and by the cataclysmic activity, that the lower portion is pre-Inca. We also know that this cataclysm came from outside of our solar system, and there are different theories about what happened. So here is the example again of Atlantis. This is Plato, who learned from his ancestor Solon, who learned from the ancient Egyptians that there was
Jeez.
once a super civilization that existed
Fucking
that
hell.
we call Atlantis. And this is the description likely of what the city, not the continent, but what the city of Atlantis looked like, a bunch of concentric rings. And curiously, there is a structure that's recently been studied in Mauritania in Western Africa. It's called the Reshat structure. And as you can see, it's a series of concentric rings. It's the same diameter of 23 kilometers as described by Plato. And that's its location. As we get closer in, you'll see that the western side looks like it's sloughed off, like it was hit by some giant kind of earthquake or impact, making the left portion fall into the ocean. And then this is the view, an artistic view from above. And it fits Plato's description in terms of mountains to the north, plains to the south. Its location is beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which is the Straits of Gibraltar. So its location is quite curious. But is it a collapsed volcano? Is it a meteorite impact site?
Oh, man.
And there are unknown structures. If you take Google Earth and zoom in as far as you can, then you see there are structures there. Unfortunately, this Canadian
I might sign off now. One sec.
researcher
I might
that
sign
I
off.
know spent thousands and thousands of dollars to get to the location. And when he got there, the structures that he found were very simple and probably relatively recent. So this is not the site of Atlantis. There are no megalithic structures or signs of megalithic structures.
Thank you for
once there.
watching.
Also, another curious phenomenon is why is our planet at 23.5 degrees off vertical? In a perfect universe, our planet would be perfectly up and down. So why does it have that dramatic list? It's as if it was struck at one time or different times by some kind of massive impact.
Oh, Plato's.
And one candidate for that was recently discovered in Greenland. There are different theories about this cataclysm. Some think that it was a comet or comets that hit the Earth. Some think it was asteroids, etc. But comets, even if they're huge comets, they're mainly composed of ice. So when ice hits a solid object, it doesn't create that big an impact. But if it's metallic, then it's going to create a major impact. So what they found here in the northwestern part of Greenland is a